Hello, and welcome to the Game Informer Show. I am Andy McNamara. I am your host this week as Ben Hansen is out. So we will have an exciting show without Ben Hansen. That's right. And to my left, I have Andy Reiner.
Hello.
JB Goralty.
Hi.
Matt Bertz.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about a lot of things. So to kind of give you a whole lineup of the show, what we're going to talk about first is Game Awards, which is going to be a lot different than you think. You're going to make an assumption right now, and you're probably wrong. There's going to be a weird deep talk about Game Awards and Game Informer and what we want to do in the future with Game Awards. The next one is going to be about Red Dead Redemption 2 Online, which is the cowboy adventure came out this week. And it's in beta, and some people have access, some people don't, but the team around here has been playing a lot, so we're going to get a chance to talk about that, which is going to be exciting. Next up, we're going to talk about Fallout 76, which is... let's just say I think it's fun to talk about, right? There's a
lot to say.
Yeah, I think there's something to talk about
The
there.
word fun might not apply most times, but yes, there's a lot to say.
Probably another F word. Right?
And then finally, Darksiders 3, which also came out this week. I know Reiner was playing it this morning. I played it some last night. We're going to bring in Kyle, who did the review for us. We'll discuss that game some. And then finally, we have an interview that Ben Reeves did with Just Cause 4 director Francesco Antolini. He's going to talk about jetpacks, tornadoes, all kinds of madness around Just Cause 4. So that's the lineup for today.
And community emails.
Oh, yeah, and community email. Oh, my God.
Yes.
We are going to waste so much of your time today.
Yeah.
And, I always kind of bug Hansen that I'm like, show's too long, and I'm going to make a ridiculously long show today. So I really should stop mocking in any way, shape, or form. So, all right. So to set up this awards thing, Game Informer has done awards for a long time, right? And we've tried all kinds of different things. Truthfully, I can't even remember all the different things that we've tried. We've tried top 10s, just individual awards, things along the way. And then I think we eventually led to what we've done for probably 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, longer than I can remember now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's been a while.
Well, we like it though.
We do
think
like
it works. Yeah.
Which is like we do our top 50. For anyone that's not familiar, every February, sometimes January, sometimes March, we do our top 50, which is that we look back at the year and we try to figure out what are the 50 best games of that year. And that's kind of worked from one date to another date, and we've picked those games, and those are our winners. It's been controversial because we don't rank those, and that's something I think internally we've always battled about, like, why don't we rank them? There's people who are in the ranking camp, people who are not in the ranking camp. And I've always been, like, this is my personal take, I kind of like the top 50 points to, these were really great games, and then you can kind of go to your own liking, right? Like, because one person's favorite game of the year is different. It's sometimes hard to, like, do one game versus another game. Then, of course, you can look back, as I think Bertz did in our meeting just the other day. He goes like, well, we did the top 300 games of all time, and, you kind of put things against each other. So it certainly is murky ground, and I think that's awards in general, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So there's going to be awards coming. There's already been awards given by the ultimate, the joystick, Golden Joysticks already gave out awards. We have the Game Awards with Jeff Keighley coming out next week, I believe, the end of next week.
Yeah.
So it is award season, and then everyone else will slowly get their thing out, and we're going to have a battle, I feel, this year between God of War and Red Dead Redemption. I think seems to be the main battle for Game of the Year. I think, at least that's my
Spider-Man's
opinion.
hanging there upside down on the ceiling.
Yeah, I know.
Like he's there. He's lurking.
He is lurking. And I think too that what that brings us to the thing is that I think Fortnite won the Golden Joystick for Game of the Year. And just for anyone who doesn't know, Battle Royale came out in 2017.
Yeah.
So I think it's September of 2017. So that said, Fortnite is a great example of what we're talking about here, is that games as service has changed games a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. And even Game Informer, we've talked about in the past, like, do we want to change the way we do our top 50 based on the way that games as service has changed for many, many, many years? Because there are just games that live on. I know, like, me personally, people mock me, but like every year, I'm a WoW head. I get it. I put World of Warcraft on my top 10 games, which it doesn't always have a new game that year, but it's still one of my favorite games I played that year. It's for that year, I have a ton of fun playing it. And so for me, the top 10 games I played that year, I define it by the games that I played that year, right? Not just the games that came out that year. And that's the wall that we're facing. So I think I've laid out like what we do and why we do it, and then what we think the challenge is going forward. And literally this week, this is our Monday afternoon, we sat down to discuss this very issue. And I kind of want to discuss it in front of our listeners, readers, so that you make sure, we want you to comment and let us know what you think about what awards should be.
Yeah, we didn't come up with a solution. Like,
we did not.
We left that meeting with various options, like in our heads, like try to figure this out. So yeah, we wanted to further discuss it here and get your feedback as well.
So one of the things was that, if we have a date that says like, hey, games, like whenever we can't get any more games in, which we hold out our awards. I think, I'm not trying to diss anybody the way they do their awards. We hold our awards for as long as possible to try to get in all the games that we think are eligible in a year, which gets really hard when someone's like, Nintendo will be like, and Smash Brothers comes out December 22nd. And we'll be like, oh my God. That's not when it comes out. I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
That games that come in really late that we think could be amazing. And so that's always hard. So it's difficult when you get in that race to get your game awards out quicker, you're going to have games that don't make it. Right? Like I would say, and once again, I'm not mocking him. I think when you look at the Golden Joystick Awards, there's no mention of Red Dead Redemption on there anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, which, I know some people love it. Some people don't love it as much, but like their audio in Red Dead is ridiculous, like crazy insane. And the work they did as that group, and also the production values in that game are through the roof, which I think are hard to argue. It's weird. It's noticeably absent, I think, from those. So, so let's discuss. I want to hear what you guys think. So I guess the basic premise was, what if we changed it so it wasn't the top 50 games of a year, and we changed it to like, what were the top 50 games that were just hot that year? You know, I mean, to some degree, like that were the talk of that year.
I mean, it was Fortnite's year, right? For 9-10 months of this year, it was the biggest
really
game. It might be for the next 2 months as well, right? But the thing that I heard in the meeting that made me start changing my mind, because we do the top 50 and then we have a top 10 for games as a service.
Correct.
So I was always like, that's our safety net. That's our catch-all. We get those games in there as well. But then I think it was Matt Miller that brought it up that a game like Destiny comes out with a expansion for Forsaken or whatever. And that is just one big download of content. Whereas something else like Fortnite, they spread out maybe more content than that over the course of the year. How does that full year of content not be considered in the same breath as just one download?
And it affects everything we do. Like we review Destiny 2 Forsaken. We don't review the seasons of Fortnite. We don't review when there's new maps and new characters in Rainbow Six Siege. But there's all this new content that if you collect it in aggregate, it's just as much content, if not more.
Yeah, like Fortnite would not count this year unless they had Fortnite Dance Edition expansion that we like could put a date on and like a box art on and go, that's a game. And then we'd be like, okay, now it's eligible?
Yeah.
Which is dumb?
That's why it feels outdated.
That's why it feels outdated.
And it used to just be you and whichever PC editor at the time, Adam or Tack, you guys would have the game as service as an MMO.
Yeah.
And the rest of us would just have games that came out that year. But now, half the staff plays Overwatch every night.
Yeah.
It's just, that is a game that has dominated our conversations around the water cooler. It's always at front of mind in the office. And to not have that in our list this year's, I'm not even one of the people that play that game, but that's weird to me.
Yeah, and then you start thinking about that, like Fortnite, Overwatch, League of Legends, Dota, Rainbow Six. It's like, wait, the whole award list is going to be like these legacy games that carry over. Like you're going to have maybe 30 new games and then 20 that are there every year. But then we started thinking about, okay, then you have to just base it on that new content, how that affected the game maybe, right? Like,
at least that's what we're thinking, but it is scary. I mean, it's terrifying to go like, hey, it's tough because you go like, okay, let's. I'm trying to think of a game like a game we play like Crash Royale. We play it on phones. We play it every day. Reiner and I both do. But this year we've been annoyed by the new modes. We still play it every year, but I mean, like it ate up a lot of our game time.
It's one of our favorite games still, but it's not one of the best examples of new content in a game this year.
No, it is not. So it's easy to say that one's not on there, but there could be other games. You know what I mean? Like is, I mean, WoW did have a new expansion this year. That makes it fit the old style, but like, does it get more points because of its legacy? Do you know what I mean? And like, how do you judge that legacy? How do you make sure you don't overrate for the legacy? I mean, there's a lot of challenge in doing that. I mean, there was the nice thing of like, it came out between this date and this date. Here are the goalposts. We're done. But games just aren't going to be that way anymore. And as a matter of fact, I think, to your point about Miller making comment, Bungie said in one of their things the other day, which I think is a really interesting, quote for here, which is that we really don't want to be a boxed product that you think of as being on a disc. We want to be a world that evolves and changes over time. So basically, they don't want to be like, here's the next expansion. They want to be like, here are the events we do every weekend. Here's some new updates. Here's new things that kind of, I don't want to say trickle, because I think that's maybe like discounting what they're doing, because I think you can still do a lot of content, but be like, It doesn't have to be a big giant patch. It can be events that happen in worlds that are interesting, right? And I think that draws players back, or you like hear about it and you go like, oh, wow, this is happening in this world. And I think a lot of this is owed, by the way, I think a little bit to, which goes to our later conversation, is Grand Theft Auto Online.
Yeah, Rockstar's done a great job of creating new centers of content. And, you could argue that, well, you're still kind of doing the same basic actions in the game, but they build a new infrastructure where you have new stuff to do, new businesses to start. And, every time one of those comes out, it percolates back up in the conversation.
Yeah, and so those type of games, and in particular Fortnite this year, because I think Fortnite is a unique example of a game that, love it or leave it, you know what I mean, that you could tell it was a game made by a company that makes game engines, right? Because they made a game that they could quickly and easily add and change content to without it being a giant production, right? I think one of the things that, we've heard over the years is that some games are just, it's really difficult to like add content to. And like anyone making a game going forward, or anyone that wants to make a game as service or make a game world that people will live in and like use a lot, you need to not only make it look great, but you also need to make it where your team can be agile and quick at changing that game and updating that game, because gamers now basically, I don't know at whose fault we can, lay it at, you know what I mean? But like, we demand a lot of content, and we demand a lot of content quickly, right? Because we'll walk away. I mean, I think that's another thing too that the companies need to be scared of is, you love Destiny until you get to max level, and then you walk in, you're like, there's nothing to do. I'm just managing my inventory and shooting the same things over and over again. Bye-bye, right? Like, we want input and we move on. And I think that's where this challenge comes in, because I think more and more games are going to have to be building worlds. And like Leo loves Rainbow Six Siege, which out of the gate was good, right? But like, you know what I mean? Like,
a great game was in there. They just had a lot of infrastructure problems with it that they've obviously fixed.
Yeah, and I mean, that game has moved up, done better and better, and like engaged a lot of people. And I saw a lot of people and friends this year that like they were spending a lot of time with Rainbow Six Siege, right? And like, that is, you could argue, and we haven't had this argument yet at the office, but then that's one of those things you go like, is it a 2-year-old game? Year-old game.
3?
No, it's 3 because we were reviewing it when I came to work for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. But
and
I mean,
we've already written stories. Like, we did a big feature last year about how they kind of turned the corner with that project and got it on the track it's on now.
But I mean, you could say, I mean, I'm not, but like, that could be in the talk for a top 50 game 3 years after it came out, right? Which is scary and daunting. And even that too, we talked about, like, does it have to be top 50? Should it be a different number? Should it not be a number? Should we organize it? You know what I mean?
That's what I'm
like,
thinking. Like, what if we still pick 50 new games and then it flexes? So it can grow by 10 games in a year. Maybe it's 5 if some of those games start to fall off. Maybe it's more than that, where they have like kind of a special call out in those new games. You still have your Overwatch. I mean, your Rainbow Six.
It's like,
it just balloons a little bit.
It's tough.
But then are they award eligible as well? We give awards for the best shooter, the best role-playing game.
I think
it's been a soft year for shooters. Like, does that open the door for a legacy product that has had a really good year of content to take it? It raises a lot of interesting questions.
It does. It definitely does.
I think I'm most interested I think they should be eligible because I'm most interested in the pursuit of here are the 50 best games and the most interesting games that came out this year that we played this year, and that includes games that came out before this year, games that were in service. For it, I think
that they were interesting now.
Yeah, they were interesting now. Like
Yeah.
I think Rainbow Six Siege is the perfect the perfect example of that, of a game that came out and was kind of fine on release, but as the years have gone on, it's really expanded and met its potential or even exceeded it.
Yeah.
It feels weird for us not to acknowledge that,
Yeah.
especially with so many games that start out as buds of what they could be, you know? So I think it does make sense to incorporate games as service in particular. I'm not so sure about like leaning away from the top 50 or even adding spots. I really like that idea of like, here it is. Pure.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to, if you don't make a cream of the crop,
It's
then
already
there's
a
no
giant
cream. Yeah,
list.
you know
It's
what I mean?
already
You don't-
50.
Yeah.
Most
like,
lists are top 10s.
Yeah.
We have 50.
we have 50, and I, you know, and once again, I didn't finish that thought earlier. I mean, the reason I love the top 50 is like, you know, I kind of originally stole that a bit from, I think, maybe Rolling Stone like decades ago, which is basically that like, you didn't look at it and go like, because I liked indie rock and I liked reggae or whatever, and they'd be like, the best album of the year is, you know, some pop band. You know what I mean? I'd be like, that's not the best album of the year, but I think they did a good job of like covering like
A wider swath.
like having a wider look gave you a chance to look within that look or that group and go, oh, and here's the things that fit my style. Right? You know what I mean? To go like, oh, okay, and then these are the things that I missed, right? That if these guys won an award, I need to go check out that band. I need to go check this out. And I really wanted the top 50 to get that opportunity because, you know, for some people, they'll look at it and go like, oh, Minecraft, I don't care about.
Yeah.
You know, Minecraft, you know, I know that's not me, right? Like, but, you know, I love shooters, right? And Call of Duty's on there, but there's also this other game I've never heard of. What's that game, right? Why did that one have the same level or like reach the same like importance or relevance as that? Like, and I think that's important. And I think I really don't want to lose that because I think that's the best part of looking back and going, what did I miss?
Yeah, and that's something I hear the most from people in comments is or emails and stuff like that is they like our list because it is a roadmap for what they should play from 2018 or, you know, going back. Like,
Yeah.
they can look at that, have that book out all year long, be like, what did I miss?
Yep.
So if you take those slots away, you're narrowing that field of new releases.
You definitely are.
Yeah,
And you're
so-
also, and you're removing that one that like we always get to do like, oh, that's this darling game that nobody heard of that, you know, no one's talking about, and we can put it in there.
Yeah.
The question is, do you really think those are the ones that are going to pay the price, or is it going to be like the small evolution games that, you know, like Battlefield 5 this year? That's, you know, it's a solid game. It's good. There's a lot of stuff we still don't have that they advertised when it first came out.
Yeah.
You know, like incremental, like a sports game where it's inching up a little bit. Like, are those the ones that are going to pay the price, or do you think it's going to be indie darlings?
I think it's a mix of all that,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
mostly,
probably,
I
yeah.
think mostly the indie darlings, the ones that are just kind of in that, you know, when we do the awards, there's always like the last 10 games that we're arguing over maybe the most.
But I never feel like, at least while I've been here, like it's not always indie darlings on the threshold. It's always like a good mix. You know, I can't remember what exactly was in contention. Like last year it was like some Civilization expansion pack or maybe XCOM 2 or something. It feels like, you know, it's not just indie stuff. I don't think it'd be indie stuff that would pay
like
the price.
payday type level stuff,
Yeah.
that middle class.
Like the mid-tier stuff, which, you know, I'm good with cutting that. If we get like, if getting like Overwatch and
You're
Fortnite.
good with cutting it, but you can't remember them.
Yeah, like I'm good at cutting that.
I don't know what
I
it
think
is.
that says
We'll just
something.
cut it.
It is
That's-
tough.
That says something, you know, like this is also supposed to be a recap of like what was impactful that year. You know,
Right.
we write about which publishers are excelling. What are the big headlines? What were the big disappointments and successes of the year?
What were the dorks?
Yeah,
the stuff
what
that
were-
really
yeah,
matters.
the stuff that really matters. and you know, like losing some of that mid-tier stuff that we have a couple fans of in the office to put something on there like Fortnite that, I mean, like there were
We're not informing anybody that Fortnite is a popular game.
No, but like looking back at that issue, you know, you're like, yeah, that's right. Fortnite, like mom groups came out against this game. It was so big, it like affected our culture.
It would be
You know?
super weird if 10 years from now I opened up this year's top top 50 and saw that Fortnite wasn't in there because I feel like that was the game this year. Even as someone who does not care for that game, it's hard to, it's the Minecraft thing, right? Like you have to acknowledge its footprint.
Yeah, and it does that thing too that we talked about a little bit with reviews and our change to reviews and dealing with reviews in progress and people having something out there was the same thing. Was a lot of the beginnings of our problems with our top 50 was Minecraft, because it was like, this is the biggest game of the year and it's not out yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's alpha and it has problems. And the guy who made it, even though it was fun, was like, it's not done. You're like, dude, it was kind of done. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun right now, and that matters, right? So all those things are issues, and I think they're going to continue to go forward. I don't think we can ignore it for very long. I mean, I will admit, I do love the idea as well, by the way, just to show you how flip-flop I am. I sometimes I go like, okay, screw it. Let's just stick to the year. Let's get the 50. It's very defined. It's easy to make sure it doesn't get as like difficult to explain, right? And not that something can't be difficult to explain, but the waters of video games have gotten very muddy, let's say, over the last 10 years. I mean, I think there was a time when you got a cartridge or you got a disc and that was it. And now that's just not how games work.
The good old days.
The good old days, yeah.
It's all defined.
Yeah, boot discs and multi-disc installs.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to have a structure that acknowledges that. Like, obviously, we don't have to be muddy as a result of that, but I do think part of acknowledging that is, if we are going with, hey, these are the top 50 games of the year, is acknowledging service games.
And this isn't a new conversation. I mean, we had this conversation last year before the list.
Well, it goes back to Minecraft,
Yeah.
where we started talking about like alphas and betas and what's a finished game and what's not.
And see, that's the problem too, is I feel like developers have used that too to their advantage. A lot is like, oh, it's still in early access. It's a beta.
yeah.
More people
Fortnite's
can
still in
pay
beta.
full price.
Fortnite's in beta. 200 million registered users.
And I think that's
we're still working on it. The NFL's in it. We're still working.
Yeah,
It's just beta.
it's still just
It just feels weird not to court that. It feels like, and to the extent that like we can't criticize or even like slap review scores or put them in like the top 50 or not in the top 50. I think I'm more interested in like Fallout, like the idea of, okay, what about disaster games or bad games making the top 50 as like conversation starters? Because I feel like Fallout 76 is genuinely one of the biggest games this year in terms of like how much people have talked about
it'll be
it.
number one on the disappointments list.
Yeah, like does that make it like one of the games of the year? Or are we just going to sideline that?
JB, you've fallen off the cliff there.
No,
Yeah.
I want to know like your
I see-
thoughts. Like I'm not nominating it.
We're picking. I mean, we've always picked the games that we want people to
Like,
play.
we want these
these
to
are
be-
recommendations. Like,
Okay.
these are the games you should play if you have time.
Okay.
not to sit around and just be mad about.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's not just because it's like part of the like discourse, right?
Yeah.
As a gamer. But I think Fallout 76 is a great example though, because that's a game, and I'm not saying they will, but I mean like that's a game that if they got their act together and they figured it out, that could be a really cool game
2 years from now, or
2 years from now, or a year
Yeah.
from now, right? And you'd be like, wow, Fallout 76 is awesome. They changed the way the world works. They changed the way multiplayer works. It's a lot of fun. We go out there, we've got, and people have, and by the way, too, I think another thing that happens with some of these games is that people come, right? I know that sounds silly to say, but when the players are there and players change the world, do you know what I mean? Like EVE Online is tedious at times, right? But like the people change the view of that world, right?
Warframe, Arc.
No Man's Sky is an interesting one for this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God,
yeah.
yes.
Basically, we're gonna have 3 new games on the list: God of War, Red Dead, and Spider-Man, and everything's gonna be from like legacy
Joke,
games.
but I feel like that's a genuine concern in that room. when we're
My
having that
worry is when we
conversation.
put the remasters in. That's a bridge too far for me.
But But you almost, well, I mean, I think you have to look at remasters as like a really great remaster is something that can define a year, right? And can be one of the best 50 games of the year, but it is difficult because it is built on basically the bones of the old one. I mean, that's another conversation that we have to have and figure out, like, because they're great remasters, and there's ones that don't feel the same as the original. Is that a new game?
legislating that boundary is going to be very tough.
I don't think it's that big of a deal because I trust the people in that room. Like, I feel like, even Cork, who loves Diablo 3, would not look at like the Switch version of Diablo 3 and go, "That's a great remaster," because it's not. Like,
It's a port.
Yeah, it's a port.
port.
Well,
But there
But
are
like Shadow of the Colossus is one that I feel like people would fight for this year.
Yeah,
Spyro.
And Spyro, and there's actually a lot of them when you go down the list, and a lot of them like they're backed. When we're worried about nostalgia factor, that's the category where that really takes
Yeah, it
over.
does.
It's a drug at that point.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's a real game that falls under the like, hey, these things are going to be in trouble too, is sports games, which we've always had trouble dealing with
Yeah,
on
we're
our
the
list.
redheaded stepchildren in
You
that
really
room
are.
every time.
I thought when you were talking about it earlier, you were like, who couldn't get their games on that had a really great game? And I was like, shut up.
All of Kato's top 10.
Because like Kim and Bertz and Kato are always like, this was a really great sports game this year. And we're like, hey, there's 3 on the list, everybody. It definitely always fought
You've
that.
met your quota.
It's either that or Poor Miller's CRPG.
Yes. Yeah. There are definitely people that have, and that, by the way, I think that's a sign of a good list is that people leave the meeting a little angry that their darling didn't make it, but everybody has a darling that they want on that, in the top 50.
But back to the remaster thing, though, I think the problem inherent with that sort of thinking is that I do think a lot of readers and myself and a fair amount of people in the office do get excited for those games, and they do go out and buy lots of those games or lots of copies of those games, and they're excited for it. Like Shadow of the Colossus, when they announced that remake, people flipped their shit.
Yeah, they did.
Pokemon Let's Go, and they seem to be genuinely good to great games. I don't think necessarily like sidebarring them is the right answer. Like having a long discussion about whether this game should be on the list is more interesting to me. Like, is it a good game? Is it good outside of the fact that it's a remake? Does it do things, that complement how good the original was and build upon that?
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. And you're like, I mean, there is something too that I'm not that I'm advocating for it, but I mean, like, there's so many more games that come out in a year now than even like when we started the top.
100 games just came out on my phone in the time that
we were here, right?
We were here.
So, and there's like VR games, and there's just like, there's a lot of games that people just make to just like appease a certain market, right? You know what I mean? Like a certain genre of things that people love. And I know, to your point too, that like when we sit down to talk about the top 50, we're sitting there in that room and someone will go, I just played this last night, and I'll be like, what game?
Yeah, what the hell is this?
What game is it? And they'll be like, it's great. And I think that's the mirror that we're trying to like get to the readers, is that like you see those games or hear those games that you're like, what the hell is that? And go try it and take a look at it. I definitely tried some games in the last couple of nights that I didn't like, but I was glad I saw them because someone mentioned them in the room and they wanted to talk about it. And that's something we do. The reason we have the meeting really early is so we have 2 or 3 weeks for everyone else to kind of go, oh, I missed that. I need to go play that so I can be a part of the discussion, so we can help, make that list as great as we can. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
It's a very
What if-
go ahead. Sorry.
So, like I brought up earlier, the balloon idea, which is really good idea. What if we had
7,000 games of.
I'm saying like this whole issue just might as well just make it the top 50 or whatever, but or the games of the year. But what if we had the top 50 as we've done for the last decade plus, and then we had a expanded legacy section, which incorporated all these things.
So you're just saying blow out the sidebar.
Basically, yeah, make it 2, 4, 6, how many pages it needs to be. That could include remasters. That could include, games as service that carry over from the years past. You have a very clean divide between the new games for those people that want those lists, and then also a defining kind of look at the year when you put them all together.
So are those eligible for awards?
I think that's tough. That's tough because
that's the hard part.
the shooter we played the most this year is Overwatch, right?
In this
and
office,
I think,
yes.
yeah, and obviously we're addicted. Yeah, I mean we're super addicted to it. So there's a bias there, right? But Call of Duty is probably the best shooter of the year, in my opinion, in terms of
Some
a
people
new
would argue
game.
Fortnite was the best shooter of the
Or
year.
Fortnite, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. See, my problem.
Maybe those genre awards bleed over the two.
My problem with that is I still feel like it gives the short shrift to in-service games by robbing them of those spots. Like if Overwatch was genuinely, with the improvements in mind, genuinely one of the best experiences this year, why shouldn't it be on the top 50? Because we have an arbitrary,
It's hard.
barrier that we've constructed and that doesn't really fit this industry
I don't think
anymore.
it's arbitrary. I think you have a very clean divide.
But there is something arbitrary to it in that, like, I mean,
It's the expansion thing, right?
It's the expansion thing. It's that it had a date. It's that, I mean, to be real about it too, is that like some of these games are doing great things and being the best thing to play, right? So like even I'm going to pick a game, and I'm not trying to make fun of any particular game, but like even God of War, which we would talk about in the breadth of being a game of the year, right? And I think it's made a lot of nominee lists, like was played and entertained, let's go, 6 million people. Let's just, I don't think it's 20 million people, right? And there's games as service.
Not 200 million.
Not 200 million. And there's games as service that are literally entertaining and engaging tens, if not hundreds of millions of gamers, right? In a particular year. And that's what they're playing. And I think that's one of the things that Miller said that was really, I think, a good way to kind of sum it up was that, like, our readers are going to open up and be like, I played this game all year long. And it's not one of the best games of 2018. And you go like, well, it didn't come out on that date.
Yeah.
And that's the reasoning. But is that right?
For me, it all comes back down to that arbitrary definition of packaging. Because, like, the Blood and Wine expansion for Witcher 3, we gave the role-playing game of the year.
Yeah.
And that if that was just incrementally released over the course of a year as a building story, it wouldn't have been eligible.
Or even if they just would have put it as like, go to your town today, there's something new going on.
Yeah.
Right, and just built it into the game, it would have ended up being a moment in our old way where we would have gone like, it's amazing that there's this whole new rabbit hole that you can fall in Witcher. But just the fact that they said, here it is, it's an expansion, it costs this, buy it, defined it as a quote-unquote winner. Which, by the way, it's great. You know what I mean? Like, it did deserve what we gave it, but it is interesting that happens and that these digital worlds are going to continue to grow, continue to be places where people go. Once again, I'll use WoW. I mean, WoW's at 14 years, right? They still put out expansions for EverQuest, right? Yeah. That game is, I don't even want to know how old that game is, to tell you the truth, but it's got to be 20 plus years old.
And for you viewers out there, picture there being another 14 people in this discussion.
Yeah,
this
true.
is a very tame, very organized version of it, but it becomes crazy. Like, there's so many different voices with so many different ideas.
There are a lot of players.
That actually changed during the meeting too. It's really interesting to watch that.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting watching the pivot from day to day, hour to hour, even sometimes minute to minute. It's really interesting.
Like, I might change my mind on the remaster thing. Thinking about it, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know yet.
Well, you get new info.
Is,
you start to think about it, weigh it differently.
And I think that's the point.
Pick your battles.
We actually want to hear, I want to hear. I want to see the comments about what you guys have to say about this. I'll definitely be lurking on our site, on YouTube, to see what you have to say. I'm interested because we don't know what our solution is yet. We definitely know this is a topic that we're talking about. We wanted to share that conversation with you guys. Hopefully it was interesting in some way because we know like this is the list. It's like 3 pages of games that we start to even call, and then it's got a bunch of side notes in it that we know there were a lot of great games this year, and we want to make sure we communicate what was great about 2018 the right way. So we want to hear what you have to say about it because we're going to continue to talk about it here in the coming weeks. And then hopefully we'll surprise you with our issue, which will be February, coming out in January.
Don't be surprised if it's exactly the same.
There is always that. There's some comfort in not change, but change is hard. But change is needed. You know what I mean? I think games needed to change. We need to always make sure that we're thinking about the way we talk about games changes and that we're doing it in the right way. So thank you, 3, for that. We'll move on to talk some Red Dead. So we're going to lose Andy Reiner here, bring in a Jeff Cork, and we're ready to rock.
Here we go.
No.
Hello and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Andy McNamara, still here. We still have Matt Burns, we still have JV. We have brought in Jeff Cork. How are you doing?
Serial lassoer.
Serial
And prankster.
Yep.
So,
And jerk.
Lasso's the best thing.
So we are going to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 Online. I don't know if does it have a
Red Dead Online.
Red Dawn Online, is that we know
Red
that?
Dead Online.
Red Dawn Online.
Red On? Red On?
Red Dawn?
I'd also
Red
play
Dawn?
Red Dawn Online.
It's Red Dawn? Which I came in this morning to... I went over to Jeff's desk and I was like, oh, so you're trying to join the pies? He goes, I'm trying. And I was like, oh, okay. So what are you doing? He goes like, I lassoed JV and it made him really mad and he shot me. And I was like, that's one way to do it. And then he walked up and goes like, oh, there's JV again. Walked up, lassoed him again. And he goes like, he's probably going to shoot me. And then JV got off his horse, shot him in the face again. And then I walked into the room. I was like, JV, he said you'd do that.
Yeah.
And,
That's Cork's hello.
You build your own story.
He did the same thing to me yesterday, except he tied me up, he put me on my horse, and then he shot his gun so the horse rode off.
In my defense I have no defense with you, Bert, so I apologize. For JV, though, he was trying to pick up the deer, and he would pick it up, and Red Dead's got some fairly slow animation, so he's like picking it up, and then it's like lasso, and then he falls onto the ground, the deer falls down. It's very funny. The second time,
That's
especially.
a good defense.
Yeah,
That's your defense.
yeah, it's funny.
I don't feel bad about shooting you.
All right.
Okay, so this launched this week, the beta, which we were like, I wonder if it's still going to happen in November, like they said. Then all of a sudden, the day before, they said, coming tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's been a limited release, I think, to people with Ultimate and kind of working its way to other...
Friday everybody has access.
Friday everybody has to. So the day after this show. So it's why don't you give us the kind of like general like vibe of what it's all about, and we'll go from there. I mean, obviously, I guess we gave a little bit of taste there, but
well, it is. It's mayhem. It's absolute mayhem. The first things that I found interesting is like there is like a good narrative lead in that sets a new story. You create your character. You can choose what kind of teeth you have, which is really interesting.
Can you choose no teeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that one costs a lot of money.
It's called the gummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tooth options are basically the presence or absence of teeth.
Yeah, and
it just falls
in varying
down.
degrees. Yeah. It's really funny. I really like the character customization. Is like you're not going to be a handsome fella. Like they have all these weird complexions and like terrible haircuts.
GTAO had the same thing. Like
Yeah.
it's a really good character creator for if you don't want to make someone who's handsome.
Yeah, for caricatures, basically.
I assume male and female?
Yep, of course.
Okay,
Yep.
well, some people would say not, of course, always, but yes.
I think my whole posse.
I think your
besides
whole
me
posse is women, right?
Yeah, you guys are all women, I think.
Well, Fava's making his character. Kyle's making his. He's made a woman. Fava's making a male who, at this point, is looking a lot like Ben Franklin.
I'm into
Oh,
it.
and then there's creepy Joe Juba, who
Who just made himself. Joe just made himself.
and he doesn't wear shirts.
With or without
It's
teeth?
disgusting.
Ugh.
It's the worst. It looks like if Joe was in a David Cage game. It's terrible. Sorry, Joe.
But so, this is what Red Dead
Yeah,
Online is
exactly.
honestly about. There's a lot of stuff to do, but like the most fun you're going to have in this game is goofing off with your friends, deciding to just kill everybody in Saint Denis and, wreak general havoc. Like this is a great engine for those kind of emergent moments.
Okay, so you
It's
make
so
your character,
good.
you head out into the world. Obviously, you do a lot of things that you did in the single player game.
Yep.
So how big? I mean, it's the whole map.
Whole map.
But how many people are in that world? How do you encounter other players? What defines that player map?
So there's a total, I don't know what the actual count is, but you see a lot of characters on the map all the time doing whatever they're doing. And there's still NPCs, but there's dramatically less number of them. Mm-hmm. Like we can walk into bars that are, packed to the gills in the single player game, and there's just the piano player and the bartender, and you're like, wait a minute.
So they
And
want the world to be filled with players.
Well, yeah, but I think there's concessions you have to make to bring all
Gotcha.
these other players
Okay.
in, you know what I mean? And you see it scale differently. I don't know if they have some sort of server technology, because I've been in Saint Denis where it looks really busy for a second, and then I go back and there's almost no one there, and it's the same time of day kind of thing. And the same thing happens in the wilderness. A lot of times I'll be surrounded by flora and fauna, and then I'm going through the area later, and it's like, well, there's literally no animals anywhere. So I don't know if that stuff's scaling in and out as you're playing it.
Yeah, I was wondering too. I was thinking about it, and I haven't got a chance to look at it yet, but I was wondering if they're going to use some kind of like instancing of hopping you around from server to server to kind of like when you are. So other people are in this area, they would take all the people in that area and kind of start to stack them on top
There's
of
a blended
themselves.
thing that's happening. I don't have all the details, but I was talking to someone from Rockstar about it, and there is a technology in place to make the world feel a little bit more full.
Yeah. And then whoever you group with would be constant, right? Like you would be moving in and out.
So
those kind of
The way
server
it sets
hops.
up is you can start off and you can make a temporary posse, and that's only 4 people. And the 4 people's key because a lot of the free roam missions and the story missions allow you to play cooperatively. But after you make a lot of money, $200, you can form your permanent posse and name it and have permanent members. And that's where like you get a bigger camp, And we're going to roll out this afternoon with 7 people and see what kind of trouble we can get into.
I'm sure there will be plenty of trouble that you get yourself into.
Well, when you're in a posse, friendly fire is off. So
Well, you can turn it off. And
You
on.
can turn it on?
Yeah, I can turn it.
Yeah, and
Please do.
there are ways to kill your posse mates if you have friendly fire turned on. For
Okay.
example, we took a plantation house, and poor Bert's walked into a room filled with dynamite, and I saw him do it, and I just I couldn't. Like, he was right there standing next to the box of dynamite, so I shot it, and he died horribly.
Also, Leo's horse. Leo was on the back of my horse, and he whistled for his horse to come. And we were shooting at a stagecoach or a carriage, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this horse runs and just T-bones me, and I die instantly. So there are ways you can still kill people, even when friendly fire is.
So is
on,
there
often.
so the goal then is money, right? Is it money and build up your camp? I mean that's your like sustaining your society.
Well, there's a story story missions, right? That it's not complete yet, right? Like it's just
No, it's something they're going to keep building
Yeah.
on. There is a narrative of like you getting out of prison and meeting this lady who wants revenge on these people and blah blah blah, and like that is rolling out. And at the same time, there's all these. They're I wouldn't say they're stories, but they're monologues, I guess is what I would call them. The free roam missions, you're running into characters from Red Dead and Red Dead 2 in the world that give you missions to do. And
Okay.
your character doesn't speak, which, like you really, that's one of the things I miss the most is just being able to talk to everybody that you walk past and all that kind of stuff. So they just talk at you and they give you a spiel.
Yeah, and they always have like this weird acknowledgement too of you being a mute. They're just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you don't like to talk, huh?
Gotcha. All right.
Are you dumb?" Or
it's
something
especially
like that.
weird when you're trying to calm your horse down and you just go, which is
You're just the animal whisperer.
Yeah.
But you don't even whisper.
Yeah. But the long game is like build up your arsenal. You can upgrade your camp. It's a different camp than, there's different sizes
Yes,
of
yeah.
it. And there's a guy that stays in your camp called Crips. He's not related to the Compton-based gang or anything, but he's there, and you can even change his outfits and stuff. But the most striking change from going from single player to the online is the currency. I mean, you loot tons of bodies when you're in the single player campaign. You're like, oh, I just got like $15-$20. That's awesome. You're lucky when you get like 80 cents out of a body.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's you get way less money, and you really feel sort of the maintenance of the experience right now, because you have camp upkeep, you have stable upkeep. You need to buy all the provisions because you're not finding a ton of horse tonics and canned food and all the stuff that you use to fuel you and your horse. So you have to spend money on that stuff. So like there's this real like tug of war that's going on between what you're making and what you have to spend just to keep going.
It feels like, honestly, every combat encounter you have, you're lucky to break even in terms of like ammo expenditure. Like,
Okay.
oh, I made back enough money to maybe buy the ammo.
If you won.
Yeah, if you won.
Yeah.
Like it's not great.
And there are things where you get more money, you're in treasure maps as you go up, and that's usually a big reward, and you're like, oh, I finally have some money to spend. Yeah. But, like, I think about why they did this, and it's jarring at first, but I'm starting to see, like, there's a lot of stuff gated by levels that you can buy, and they're expensive, but it's going to take you a while to get there. I think this is all lengthening out. You need content in your game, as we were talking about with Destiny earlier, like, you get to the end and then you're like, well, now I don't have anything to buy. And you need to create enough runway for you to, build more stuff to eventually drop into the game. And it feels like it's very intentional to like kind of pad that experience out.
Yeah. So, and are there like classic multiplayer modes?
Yep. There's adversary modes like any Rockstar game where you can run around and shoot guys.
And you would choose those from the world, or you pick that from the menu?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's little signposts where you can jump into instances. There's free roam, kind of live missions that are out there that you can opt into, and then you can go into the menu system and just get onto playlists if you just want to play team deathmatch or just want to do races and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So do you get to pick where your camp is? Are the camps like kind of preset, or do you work as a group?
You can move it around. Everything costs money. It
Okay.
costs money to set up your camp and maintain it. It costs money to move it. But you can put it in any kind of part of the world that you want to be in.
And when you say it costs money, there are two different levels of currency also, right? There's like the gold bars.
Yes.
And then also, those are used for like cosmetic type things. And then you've also got just The good old American dollar.
So the gold bar is going to be the shark card for this game. You can't
Yeah.
buy any of it now, but they're clearly creating that storefront.
Yeah.
That stuff you earn incrementally as you go on, and it allows you to do a couple things. You can buy, there's some cosmetics that you can only get with that stuff. There's horses you can only get with that stuff. But it also allows you to kind of like unlock stuff you're not at the level to unlock yet to buy with your
Gotcha.
regular money. So it's got a couple different methods of application.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like the bow is
It's
what level?
$124,
And you have
level
to be
10.
level 10. Yeah, so it's
The fishing rod's level 14.
yeah.
Which, I was really annoyed by, but I played all day yesterday. I played some this morning. I'm almost there already.
Okay.
So it feels long at the beginning, but as you're playing through and getting your feet wet in this new experience, you actually get there pretty quick.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I know GTA 5 had a lot of things where like people literally created their own gangs, you know what I mean, and things like that they would use to roam and rule the world, right? And I feel that this is the same door is open to do this in Red Dead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that stuff's not in yet, but you can see where they're building.
Yeah, the
with your
roots are
posse.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can't rob banks right now. We've tried to walk into banks at all hours of day, and they're just not available yet. You can't rob, like storefronts like you could. That was one of the main things you did in GTA
Yeah.
Online at the beginning. It's like, I can just walk into a 7-Eleven and hold this guy up and get money.
You
know?
can't really even rob NPCs.
Yeah,
like,
the
'cause you can't
rob
interact
option.
with them. Yeah.
The rob option is not there. I mean, you can kill them and take the money, but
You can emote at them.
yes.
So, I mean, like right now, a lot of the thing is just maybe you shoot someone you encounter in the world, but mostly just collecting skins, fishing, trying to just build up that camp. I mean, is that what
there's a ton of those side missions.
Yeah.
where
Oh,
you're-
just those side missions. So
Yeah.
just sticking to the story missions
A ton
and doing
of
them
those,
together.
yeah.
Okay,
which
gotcha.
are actually interesting. I feel like one of them is a caravan transportation thing, where you have to guide these carts from one town to another, and other players can invade when you do that.
Oh,
And
okay,
it's not
gotcha.
the whole map; it's just specially designated players. So you might come across some players who want to take your caravan, or you might just fight AI enemies. I feel like it's a cool.
Oh, so it will fill in. Like
Yeah,
if
it'll
you're,
fill
if you're
it.
doing okay,
but
all
there will
right, okay.
always be AI enemies there.
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
not dependent on like, oh, I'm just going to sit here for 10 minutes and no
and
one's
hope
going to
someone comes. Yeah.
yeah, no, like, and I feel like that's a great system.
Yeah.
Like giving incentive to a couple of players, because if you do that, because I was on the flip side of that, the rewards are much bigger. Like I got like $15 or $20 for stealing a player's bag of money and delivering it instead of them, which is much more than like if you just complete the mission.
Yeah.
so
If you
there's
do
like
the
a
mission, you usually get like $4
Yeah.
or something.
like it's a big upgrade in terms of like how much money you make.
So it's encouraging.
aggression.
Yeah. All right. Gotcha. That's good. That's
And
cool.
we should note the passive system is gone right now.
Yeah.
Like it's a free for all. So I mean,
Unless you're at your camp.
yeah, at your camp you can raise a white flag that protects your camp, so people can't just come in there and rain on your parade. But I mean, if you're out there fishing or hunting and somebody drives past, that you're free game for them.
Yeah, the only sanctuary you really get out in the wild is if you're in town and you're talking to like a shopkeeper or like interacting with someone, they can't shoot you. But that's it.
The question I have is, talk to me about the relationship that you have with your horse in this, because in GTA Online, like you've got your car and you can have insurance on it and everything, but I mean, like horses are so fragile, where you could like one shot someone's horse pretty
Yeah.
easily.
The horses are an interesting point of frustration for me so far. One, I think they act differently than the single player game. They're way easier to spook, so they're always kicking you off when there's gunfire, even if you've bonded to level 4. And they don't seem to calm down. I don't know if that's a bug, but Leo had a horse last night for a good 5 hours that it just was upset the whole time. He could do nothing. He would whisper sweet nothings. He would, like he even went and bought a brush so he could, brush the thing and take care of it. It just did not operate normally. So you're worried about the horse dying, like the horses are going to die.
Yeah.
You can buy insurance. Your first horse you get free insurance for. And the insurance, what it does is when your horse does go down, it will slowly build up health and come back, basically.
Okay.
You'll always keep your horse that you buy. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere like I was last night and my horse stumbled on a rock that every other Arabian I've ever had never has a problem with, that horse was dead and I was just stuck there.
Okay.
And I got it back when I eventually walked over to a mission. And once the mission started, I got the new level 1 bond 1. My level 4 bond 1 was dead.
Okay.
So you're always going to constantly be rebonding basically with these things, but it does go a lot faster.
I I kind of like the shenanigans that emerge from that, though, because as frustrating as it is, those resulted in some of the funniest moments because they were happening to other people and not me.
Yeah.
But like, for example, this morning I got on the back of Bertz's horse, and he was like checking email or something, and so I put my pistol up in the air and like shot it several times, and his horse got so easily spooked, he just like I can make it like walk around. And I feel like that's a recipe for disaster, like especially if you're like near a cliff or something.
Yeah,
You're just like,
Well, yesterday you tried to push me like by walking me off the edge of a cliff, but it like warps you like the other person behind them. So
yeah. I mean, that might be different for the horse, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you took a running leap at me, too, and fell to your death. That was very satisfying.
you gotta try.
Yeah. I feel like so much of the enjoyment in this game is going to come from just the fact that you're in an open world game dealing with like that complicated control scheme and like the nonsense that emerges from the
shenanigans.
systems.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'm not going to play this game for adversarial modes. That's never been my cup of tea with Rockstar games. You know, if I want third-person shooting, I have a lot of places where it's just frankly better controls.
Well, that's what they're pointing. That's what they're doing. That's the only thing they do is shoot each other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's just not fun. I felt like that was the general temperature yesterday when all of us played that, right?
Yeah,
like
I mean, it's an interesting
deathmatch.
diversion for me, but it'll never be a destination. The destination for me is out in the open with my friends, goofing off, doing random things, and at that, this game is going to excel. And you can see the roadmap. They have so many areas of opportunity here.
Yeah.
You know, like building up the robbery systems and letting gangs, you know, like maybe there's going to be a fur trading expansion where like you can really go all in and I'm just a trapper. I'm just going to like, I can bring a cart and I can just shoot deer and load all the carcasses up and go back to town and make a bunch of money that way. And that's what I like to do.
Yeah, and there's also, like, if you don't love online multiplayer sort of stuff, I feel like there's still merit if you love, like, Red Dead and, like, going into that world and exploring, because there's still, like, stories in there that are, like, Bert's brought up, like, characters from Red Dead 2, minor characters.
And
like,
Red Dead.
Yeah, and Red Dead play a bigger role in online, but there are also, like, secrets and really cool stuff, particularly... There's one out there in the Southwest region. If you love the original Red Dead, you should explore there. So it feels like there's already stuff there that's also like the foundation for some really cool stuff, even if you don't like online, but you're a fan of the series.
So they do push you to like posse up with some random people at the very beginning through the tutorial. But after that, how much of it have you found you can do solo?
A fair amount.
You can almost do everything solo.
Okay.
I did free run missions by myself, and I didn't really have a problem.
Same
it's actually
here.
like you get a little bit more money because
Okay.
you're not splitting the bodies
Yeah.
with everybody else.
Cool.
I find it scales pretty easily. I'm curious when we get 7 how those sorts of missions scale.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious if it's going to do the same thing as GTAO, where eventually, like, all the expansions are going to be geared towards people who are only playing multiplayer with a set group, where it's just like, because some of those heists in GTAO are impossible. Like, you literally can't do them with like randos or
Well, the problem with randos is they always back out if you fail.
Yep.
You know, like that's the problem.
Yeah, like
you can do them if people would just stick
Technically.
around and stick with it.
But like, that's not the internet. Like, you
No.
need to reasonably like do any of the content. You're going to need like a dedicated group of players, and I think that's kind of unfortunate for like long tail stuff. So I kind of hope they have like at least like an option, like, because as nice as it would be to like play throughout the year and next year with you guys, like, I'm sure that's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to be the case because
We'll be on reviews.
Yeah,
and, they're not
yeah.
always going to be available at the same time.
And, I'm sure there are folks out there who want to experience that content but don't have like a social circle that's, invested in the game in the same way. So I hope they accommodate that better than they did with GTAO at least.
Yeah, I know it sounds weird. What I'd love, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit here, and I know they may or may not be doing something on this line, but once they define like when you know how many people are in your world or how many I love the idea of it being a little bit of a settler fight. If you could really get it to that point where like a posse can move in and you can be like, there's a gold mine, there's this, there's that you can kind of like compete with growing, like almost like your own little towns. Do you know what I mean? That you could do down the line would make it pretty satisfying. You could be like, all right, you need to be the sheriff.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? While we're away and make sure nothing goes wrong with our town. I mean, you could really, you could do a lot of interesting things if you can get the world right. And that's difficult, obviously.
And they have more than enough real estate for that too.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, there's so much wilderness there. That'd be a really exciting thing, just to like actually plant a town near one of those rivers and just grow it out, it'd be so cool.
It would be I mean, because that's those old, Western, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the McCoys, they got the river and we're going to take it back, and that's, if you can capture that would be, phenomenal. It sounds like they're on the path, certainly.
Yeah, I think what I want the most, though, is just straight up Stardew Red Dead. Like, let me make a farm somewhere, grow some crops, because that's what's going to bring people in. Like, my partner wants to play the game, but she doesn't really like the shooting stuff. Like, she's just like, no, I want to do Stardew in this. I want to have my own farm and stuff. And I feel like if they, did that, you'd have, a much larger,
until an
general
old
audience.
revenge shows up and shoots somebody, and then you got to go back out and take them out. And
Then you got to hire some bounty hunters to exact revenge if you don't
Old,
like the shooting.
twisted story. Yeah.
Yeah, like those kind of emergent narratives, the world can support them.
Yeah.
It's like, can the infrastructure? That's the question. And in general, I think it's worth pointing out, GTA Online, when it started, it was rough.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
We were playing on PS4. I hear Xbox had some problems yesterday, but generally, we didn't have a lot of fail states. We didn't, there was a couple things that would go wrong, but, for a first day, it was a pretty solid first day.
Remember, keep the caveat in mind.
Yeah, it's a smaller group of the
I'm
Ultimate Edition people.
fully expecting Friday just server crashes. I think that's what's going to happen. But I want to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but I feel like we were eased into it because of lower numbers.
It also seemed to move quicker in and out of activities than GTA Online ever did.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, that's great. It sounds like a lot of fun. Is there any kind of last thing that you'd like people to know about Red Dead?
If you see Jeff Cork out there, don't play with him.
Yeah.
Just shoot him on sight.
I've got a lasso. I'm not afraid to use it.
Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. What we've got coming up next, I believe, I've even lost my own order, but I think we're talking about Fallout 76 next. Going to yet another online world. But thank you, Jeff.
Fallout 76, you say?
Oh yeah, wait.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, you're all out of here. Hello. Welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm Andy McNamara, your host. Ben Hansen is out, and I'm filling in. So welcome to the show. We're continue on here with Fallout 76 talk. And straight from the world of Beat Saber is Kyle, who was doing some crazy Beat Saber right before you
What
came
does
down
that
here.
look like?
It looks like
This?
me flailing. That game is perfect at making you think you're very cool. You're like, oh my gosh, I bet I look awesome. And then you see video footage of it, and you're like, oh god, I look very stupid. 'Cause it's just you flailing around.
You're not the ninja you believe you are.
Yeah.
at
I'm
that
playing
point.
I'm playing the PS4 version real quick, which seems solid. I like
Excellent.
it. We'll have a review on the site soon. But
Oh,
Fallout
excellent. And
is
then-
much more pressing.
And then, of course, Andy Reiner joining us again. So welcome back.
Yeah.
So the reviews of Fallout 76 are out there. The talk is out there. I think I'm going to start this conversation off with, there's a lot of things to talk about here. I think there's a lot to unpack. There has been class action lawsuits. There has been, you can only buy the game on the Bethesda store. You can, does it work? Does it do all these things? So I think it begs the question of, why did Bethesda release this game right now? What kernel of game is there that they saw that they said, this is ready for prime time? Because they had to have seen something. Please explain to me what
I don't have that answer.
what is the draw?
Yeah, I'm not in the head of Todd Howard, so I don't know why it was released, or the hundreds, thousands of people that work at that company. But there is a good idea in Fallout 76. You see that the foundation for a fun Fallout experience with friends, right? It's just the game wasn't ready for showtime yet. It's buggy, it's glitchy. They had that defined beta period, break it early, test application beta. But it was clear, it was like, oh man, we got to extend this. But they didn't, right? They released the game, and the big difference, Bethesda games, there's this kind of quote that's out there well, it's a Bethesda game, it's buggy at launch, right?
Yeah.
That isn't a get out of jail free card for this game. And the difference is, in Skyrim, when it launched, there was backwards flying dragons. You laughed at it. It didn't really impact your game. Maybe the game would crash, or you get stuck on a rock trying to climb a mountain. You'd reload your save. You can't do that here. You're in an online game. Everything that happens, and you can't take it back. So when you go into a cave and you take on a level 50 Scorch Beast, unload your mini nukes that you've been saving for 60 hours of playtime.
Yeah.
hoping to take it down, and then it glitches out and gets stuck in the wall, and then periodically comes back, and you're picking away at it, thinking like, okay,
yeah, maybe we'll win.
We're laughing at it,
yeah.
like it's buggy. Then all of a sudden it gets all of its health back, and then the server crashes. You're no longer laughing at the game.
Yeah.
All that playtime, all that stuff you saved up over that time is gone. You can't reload a save and just be like, let's try that again. So it's a different thing, right? Like they can't get away with releasing something buggy and fixing it over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean, I've heard people say on Twitter and friends that have been like, "Is this the thing that breaks Bethesda from their bad habit that they have to engage QA departments, spend money to hire QA departments, and actually get games done?" Or, on the other side too is that I mean, I personally, they're not a publicly traded company, right? Like, I get when like EA or Activision has the business pressure to like get a game out in a window. Like, why endanger the Fallout franchise with this mess, right? I mean, it seems like, and people are livid about it, right? They want their money back. And which by the way, at E3, Reiner and I talked about this as we sat next to each other. Bethesda was like, people are going to be mad that's not an RPG. Right, because that's just. I mean, not that it's not an RPG, but like that it's not a classic RPG that they make at Bethesda, which is what people want. And which, by the way, which is why at the same time at E3 they were like, "Oh yeah, we're making these. We're making Elder Scrolls, and we're making we're making more games. Don't worry." But that it was already dangerous, and then to go that next step just seems ludicrous.
Do you think maybe they just thought like that the Fallout like brand, I guess you could say, was just strong enough that it would be like, it's fine. People just want to be able to have this experience. It'll be okay if it's a little buggy. Do you think that was their like intention going in?
I mean, I wish they would answer that question.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you certainly say like you have to think they go Fallout strong enough to survive this. But I mean, I think was it like there was news that like Spyro did better.
Yeah, Spyro and Pokemon did better as well. That's like less surprising because it's Pokemon. But yeah, Spyro outsold it in Europe at least. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, Fallout. I mean, like it's a beloved franchise and world. So, explain to me a little bit here, like because I want to be straight up here. I saw what they were doing with this game, and I actually watched Reiner play it some during our Extra Life thing, and I went, "There's just no way I'm playing this game." They've done nothing to interest me in any way, and when I watch you play, I go, "I don't get it." So. You're in this world with your friends, and you're playing Fallout. You're doing missions.
Yeah. So. I saw the game in West Virginia at a Fallout event, and I played it for 3 hours there. And my big concern was it felt lifeless because they pulled out all the human NPCs. The only human people, or the only humans in the game, are players, and the servers are roughly 24. It can kind of balloon if you want to bring if I want to bring Kyle in, it can go up to 25, 26, something like that. But I was like, wow, like. There's no lore here. There's no story. It's just us talking,
something
like you do, like talking
Fallout.
about our lives, and every once in a while you go up to a terminal and there's something to read, or you get an audio file that you can listen to. But it's when you're with 3 other people, you're not going to be like, "Hey guys, hold on a second. There's like 5 pages of text here. I want to learn what happened to this lady."
Yeah.
Like, so that doesn't really work. That idea alone seems like a bad idea for multiplayer, right? Like to deliver story that way. Whereas like a game like Borderlands, you'll have Claptrap or, Skeeter or something like that. Those guys that you engage with, you could bounce around and leave the room if you want and not hear the story, but there's a centerpiece that you can follow for lore, right? Yeah. And that really works. Whereas this here, I don't know if Kyle's listening to an audio file. I could see he's at a terminal, something like that, but it just doesn't work. But if you're playing on your own, I actually found that their setup works for the world being dead, right? Like you are more of like an archaeologist that's going out and finding how people died, how they spent their last days, like you're piecing that stuff together. And that's really cool. And that works. But as soon as you add other players into the mix, that's no longer your focus. Your focus is then on just questing, leveling up, doing all those kind of typical Fallout things. And quests can be like, hey, go to this terminal, get this hollow disk from it, take it over to, this tower, turn on the tower, call in an airdrop, get this weapon, take out these super mutants. You know, they're fairly complex mission strings.
Yeah, but I saw you doing like kill 10 roaches and collect bobby pins.
Yeah. The beginning of the game is very simple, where it's like they're firing off tutorial, and it's bad. The beginning's bad. It's not until you
So
start.
is the rest of the game, apparently.
It's not until you start getting into the meat of it, like where they kind of let you go. You know what I mean? Like just like you understand everything.
Well,
there are longer missions. There's stuff in the game that is just tedious. They have a mission that's really well done where it's at a DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and you go in there and you're trying to get an ID. And the robots that are running it, the robot NPCs, are just total jerks like you'd find at the DMV. They just do not want to help you. And they're like, oh, you need a different form. Nope, this isn't right. You need your birth certificate. So they send you out and you're just going back and forth dealing with these jerks. And I was like, that's really well done. That's true to the DMV experience. It was funny. It was well written. But it kind of falls on deaf ears because the mission right before it was just as tedious. And having me go back and forth from this tower to the vault, tower to the vault, tower to the vault. And I was just like, man, this mission's terrible. And then the very next one, you're like, you guys didn't even put this together. Like,
Yeah, like the DMV is there to be like, hey, isn't it crazy? Isn't it silly? It's absurd that this
But then the
happens.
one you did before that was just as bad. You know, like.
So see, this is once again. Now, so you're explaining to me that adventures that sound like solo quests, that maybe my friend is doing the same thing I am, and we're, like you said, talking about our day to day at the same time. But what makes it multiplayer?
Yeah, so it's just like
Fallout?
it's.
I mean,
just like
are you shooting
Borderlands, right?
people? I mean, are you trying to hunt down other players? Do you
can.
not care about other players? I know that they put in some things to try to stop people from kind of
Yeah,
being,
they try to limit griefing by making people wanted, so everybody can kind of come after you, or like if you're in the world and I'm like level 50 and you're level 5. If I shoot you, I'm just going to barely do a little damage to you, and then you could just fast travel away if you want to. You have to like turn around and shoot me, and then we're in full-on PvP. So they do stuff like that, and that's smartly designed. But you're mostly taking on quests in that traditional Fallout sense and working together as a team. And like they kind of scale, you know, the
So can you
encounters to your level.
so you can do them better, faster, more efficiently
Yes.
with a group than as a single player?
I'll say this to the back half of the game. Yes, you could keep leveling up endlessly and adding new skills and all that stuff to
Yeah.
the special thing or tributes. But those last missions are where you're trying to launch the nuke. It's made for team play,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it's
You have
just
to have a
crazy.
team. You have to have a team
or
to do it.
grinding like you wouldn't believe to become powerful enough and have enough gear. Becoming over encumbered is a problem.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you're doing those missions and you're in single player, you're just like, I got my power armor, you know, like I can only carry so many like missiles and nukes and stuff like that. Mini nukes. But it all just kind of falls apart. No matter how much fun I had exploring with friends or just having that Fallout experience, the
bugs and
lack
crashing.
of the stability issues of this game just, it's like you're constantly getting hit with a nuke in the face, right? Like it's just like, and you don't even see it coming. Like you'll be like, I'm really doing, I have a lot of progress now. I'm building up my arsenal. And then all of a sudden the game crashes in the middle of a mission. You're just like, I got to do all that again.
So, you know, typically with a multiplayer game, you make a multiplayer game because it's like something you'd want to repeat or want to live in. I obviously, stability issues aside, right? I mean, so you get to level 50. Is that the max?
No,
level?
you just keep going.
You just
I
keep
think.
going.
Yeah.
So to infinity, right? So you keep leveling and you use that to what? I mean, what are you gaining by still killing more creatures in the world? And you know, once you've visited the DMV once, it doesn't sound like you want to do it twice.
You don't want to do that,
yeah. Like what draws you to that world post?
That's the big question right now, right?
Okay.
Like it's designed very much like a traditional Fallout game with a beginning and a set end. And then the post game is like you launch a nuke, you create a irradiated zone where there's higher level enemies with better drops. But for what? That's not there yet, right? There's one level 95 Scorch Beast boss that you take down, and then that's kind of it. So it doesn't really have that post-game play yet. There are events that pop up where you can do, you know, they try to bring people together
Kind of
for
dailies
PvP.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, or weekly stuff like that. And then, you know, just trying to bring people together for more difficult things. But yeah, it just kind of ends at that. That's, you know, the main campaign's over, and then it's just kind of picking away at the rest of the game.
Are there any multiplayer, like classic, like, I mean, not that I want to play deathmatch, but are there any like
The combat in multiplayer is bad.
Like find the irradiated robot and bring it back to your base? I mean, are there any like is there anything like that?
That's kind of what I'm talking about, like events every once in a while there's something like that, like
That feels multiplayer?
yeah, like let's escort these robots, or like we have 5 minutes to find all these things in this environment, within this sphere. I need help doing this. You can't do it on your own. There's just not enough time. So yeah, there's kind of that element where it's like they're really pushing for multiplayer. But all the main campaign and side quest kind of stuff, the traditional stuff, can be attacked solo or multi. But it's obviously easier or better suited if you have people with you.
Kyle, have you played?
I played in the beta a little bit, but after everything, like, because Reiner, what he does in the office is like he plays in his office, and then when he gets frustrated or when he's really enjoying something, he walks all the way back.
He either taunts you or like
he's either nodding his head like, oh, wait till you guys get your hands on God of War, or he's like with Fallout, he's just coming back and shaking his head and just being like, ugh. I don't want to do this anymore. and that was enough where I'm just like, I don't think I need to explore it. I have a question actually. Do you think this game will be like exciting in like 6 months? Like, do you think that like it can get cleaned up enough to the point where it would be like, hey, maybe it's worth taking another look at this?
Yeah, I mean, if they keep adding content and finding new ways to entertain the base, whether that's the low-level players or like, people that have stuck through the painful period right now and are in the high-level endgame stuff. If they keep adding content, maybe, but it all comes down to that foundation. Like, it needs stability. Like, it is just a rocky road right now, and it is difficult to play because of that. Like, there'll be times where it's like, I almost think it's built like on the same framework as like the traditional Fallout single-player games, where maybe it's recognizing like you as a player in an environment, and I'm just kind of an ad, and then all of a sudden, like in the room I'm in, you're in a different one, enemies just spawn out of thin air, but then kind of go after you, and it's like, that's not cool. Like, there's like, we were just cleaning this out, I'm barely out of, I'm out of stim packs, and all of a sudden 3 super mutants, high-level super mutants just appear.
Spawn for that higher-level character in the next round.
Yeah, it's just like, there's things like that that's just unacceptable. Yeah. It just doesn't feel fair.
It's an AI director, man, trying to engage you in new ways.
It just doesn't feel fair, and I hope they can clean it up. I don't know if they can.
Yeah, we're wondering if it's going to go free to play at some point. That was something we were discussing. Like, I don't know how successful it's been. I mean, maybe it's we know it's Spyro outsold it in Europe, but like maybe enough. Maybe it's actually doing okay commercially.
I mean, on their website they said there's millions of people playing.
Yeah, so.
I mean, we don't know. I mean, they've been selling it on their Bethesda store, so like there could be like a lot of people that just played it on PC. I mean, Fallout on PC is extremely popular. I mean, that is definitely one of its like one of its mainstays is on PC. I laugh. You go to the Steam store and there's like 1 billion Fallout games that are in the top sellers. I think pretty much at all times. So I mean, there are fans and people that will want to go live in that world, but
I can't even imagine when it gets to mods, like.
Maybe they'll
fix what players are going to be able to do to that?
Maybe that's the charm. Maybe that'll be the thing that changes it. I mean, I believe there probably is. I mean, I definitely, if someone said, "Hey, Fallout multiplayer, let's figure it out," I'm like, yeah, you can figure that out. You could make a fun Fallout. It's a good world, right? It's a good world.
Yeah, their basic tools are still fun. The way that you engage with your Pip-Boy and all that stuff is still that foundation that they created in Fallout 3.
Yeah.
It's still cool, right? I still like being in that world and having those tools, and I like all that stuff. And there were times where I'd go on a 6-hour run where it was just like, oh, this is really fun. Like, it's all starting to click. It's working, and all of a sudden, just like, I'm shooting this guy, but his health's going back up, and then all of a sudden it's like server lost, and you're like, what?
And the gunplay is better, right? Because I mean, like, it has to be without really
No, it's about the same.
Okay, I want to be clear here. I'm not judging you. You've done I think a very good job of explaining this game to some degree, but I still don't get it, right? Because you go like, it's still fun, and then you describe a mission to me, and I go, nothing sounds fun about it. Like, even if it was like, even if everything worked in the way that you describe it, it does not sound fun to me. It doesn't sound multiplayer to me. It doesn't sound. like I feel like there's all these boxes of like check, like does it feel like an RPG? Does it feel like that every time I'm like, I think Reiner's gonna explain to me where I'm gonna be able to go, yeah, it's got this and that interests me. I fill it in with an X.
Yeah. No, I mean, how can I describe this? Like, it feels like Fallout 4. Very much like you could fool someone, maybe have those two games running at the same time and think it's the same thing, right? Using VATS is different in real time, but it is still effective. I found it works fairly well in taking out fast-moving enemies or stuff like that. Or just if you want to break from aiming, you just use VATS and mow people down with the percentages if they're working in your favor. But it's about looting, like going into like just going off east and finding like a little farm out in the middle of nowhere and going in there, reading about what happened to these people, and then as you're going through their stuff, like, oh,
okay,
this is a cool weapon. Oh, I'm gonna go see if I have some mods for this. Like stuff like that. You start getting into piecing together what happened and taking their stuff and making it your own. And that's what Fallout is at its core, right? Like it is about exploration and story.
Okay.
Story, like I said, is still strong if you're playing single player, but you really start to lose it if you're playing multiplayer because you just can't focus on it.
So do you? You still have a base, right? Do you
have a camp? Yeah, you could build. You can have other people help you build.
I hated building in Fallout.
It's basically the same as 4.
Yeah.
But it's kind of constricted a little. You can move it around wherever you want. That's a really handy thing in that you could just not even build at all, but move your camp and use it as a drop box. So if you become over encumbered, you could just be like, go out into the village or out into the forest, drop your camp, put all your junk in there, pick up your camp and go. So you can kind of use that as a tool to help you out a little bit. Or you can just, build all your crafting benches, turrets on it, make it into an actual settlement that, will fend off enemies and be a force if other players come around too. You could do that. But this big hook of it being multiplayer is something that has been done better by decades ago by other games, right? Like, and it's still that same kind of formula. Like I keep bringing up Borderlands because it is very similar in that it's 4 players on a team, and it's not like an MMO because you barely ever see people because there's 24 people in a world that's 4 times the size of Fallout 4. If you're in a dungeon, the odds of you seeing another person pretty slim, but you do have those quest lines that will bring people to the same location sometimes, right?
So, okay. So you gave the game a 6?
6.
So if the game was stable, no other additions. I know that they recently went out on Reddit and were kind of giving like some like, hey, we're working on a number of things. Would you change your score if it was stable?
I would say it's good. If they could stabilize things, there is a solid foundation for a game there. I wouldn't say it ever hits like levels of greatness.
I'm just saying stable. Does it make it a 7? Does it make it an 8? Does it make it a 6.5?
I think you're in that 7.5, 8 range. Yeah.
So you're like, you would recommend it to big fans of Fallout, and that's about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it tickles that itch, but doesn't really expand gaming in any other way.
And also at the same time, say expect to be at least a little disappointed.
Yes. I guess it's what you want from the game, right? Like if you want those wacky NPCs and human encounters and that kind of world building, you're not getting any of that.
Yeah.
Kyle will be wacky, I'm sure.
I could do my best.
That's a different kind of interaction you have with the world, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to walk around in the wasteland with somebody else with you,
it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be fun when it works, but sadly it likes to misfire a lot at this point.
Oh, jeez.
So we'll see if they can get it ironed out. And this is a game, you always talk about that. It's like 2 years down the road, 1 year down the road. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think, once you have a world built, you can change a lot of systems around it and change the way that players engage it. It happens all the time now. I mean, they are living, breathing worlds and things can change. You just always... it's always fearful when people are disappointed, right? And I like we talked about earlier when we talked about awards and games, things like that, was that the people that play your game is just as important as your game, right? And they build your world and they fill your world when it's a multiplayer game. Like in God of War, I don't care what other people think because the world is full the way that it's made, right? But in this particular case, the world is influenced heavily by the people that are in it and how that engagement happens. So you can change it, and you can, people can. And by the way, I actually think that would be the thing. I can't wait to see what crazy mod someone comes out with that maybe changes it and makes it into like a weird, crazy, apocalyptic Wild West that maybe engages a little bit more PvP, because I think that is, that's what's fun about, the number of zombie games that came out and like survival games that you could lean into, that I think you could do a lot of fun stuff in that space. But
like right now, like, there's times where it's like, I can't get out of my power armor. Oh, I died. I'll respawn. Oh, no spawn points are appearing. I guess I'm just turning the game off because I can't even find one.
It's just dreadful.
It's like it. I really felt like the game hated me at one point. It was just like, or Todd Howard's just messing with me, just hitting buttons like, to make it break on me. Like, but I really did feel like a bug tester at some points. Just like I should be cataloging all these.
And I think it should be. I want to be clear about this. I think Bethesda's a great publisher. I think they've made so many great games. But I definitely think they need to rethink about how they look at things in the modern world, because they've got great ideas and they've got amazing properties. Yeah. And by the way, I like them too. They take some chances on some games other people would maybe not make. Right. Yeah. And I definitely agree. And I think they even put that in one of their things, like, hey, just in case when you're going to hate this, remember we try things, which is totally true. I like that about the company. But, if you have a different idea of how things that work, you need to execute it to sell people on it. And that's been a key disaster here that they need to think about as a company.
Yeah, and I saw the warning sign early on at E3 when they announced the game. And it's like, whoa, they just announced a new Fallout game and they're just doing something crazy with it. But then they're like, oh, people aren't going to like hearing this. Let's announce our next 2 single-player games to really bring them to their feet in applause, and they kind of forget about that other thing we did.
Yeah.
And they did a great job.
Don't worry, we got these coming. But, yeah.
And also, too, they spent 10 minutes like explaining it, why you were going to like this new Fallout idea. You know what I mean? Kind of over. And they did a great job of doing that, but it was definitely like, okay, this isn't what you want, but we're going to explain to you why you will want it, or why we think you will want it.
One of those bullet points of like, this is why you will like this, was you can play it kind of like a single player game. Like they had to had to be part of this pitch, All
right. Well, thanks guys. It's good talk about Fallout 76. This is going to be crazy, but the next segment is us 3 again talking about Darksiders.
Yeah.
So if you like hearing Reiner, Kyle, and Andy talk about games, guess what? There is more to come. New segment, the Game Informer Show. Okay, I think we're going to click the little buttons and go around and hop around. Maybe it'll come right to this part. So we're going to talk about Darksiders 3 now. I've got Kyle, I got Andy Reiner. And you did the review?
Yes, I did. I played it.
You played it.
I beat it, too.
You finished it, yes.
I saw credits.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Credits are always everyone's favorite part of any game.
Yeah.
So I played it last night.
Oh,
I saw Reiner playing it this morning, so we had some reference.
Yeah.
I will say, before this starts, I've often joked, Darksiders, the first one, was a game. If I had a chance to make games at that time in my life, I would have made that game. I love that game. I'm a big fan of the original Darksiders. I thought when THQ went under, I thought we were doomed and we were never going to get a Darksiders 3. I liked Darksiders 2. It had problems, but I ultimately did like that game as well.
Yeah.
And I know there were people that hit like game-ending bugs, I think, right when that game came out.
Yeah.
So it had some struggles. But 3 is I think, unexpected, as I said before, that it came out, but it did come out. And Gunfire Games is another developer that I'm a big fan of. Actually, I've enjoyed a lot of their games. So why don't you set it up? Tell us about what is the setup for Darksiders 3?
So it's Darksiders 3. You're playing as another horseman. You're playing as Fury. And so the first 2 games, which I'm with you actually, like I think that's something I talked about early, like when I first started here, was like an appreciation for Darksiders. Because I really like that series. I like that somebody else, other than Nintendo, was basically like, let's make a Zelda game.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job with the first 2.
Yes.
And the thing about 3 that's weird is it definitely takes a step back from that Zelda formula pretty significantly, like much more than I expected. But for what it is, I did like it. My review, I gave an 8 out of 10. It's more of a straight on action game. Like, it actually, if Darksiders 1 and 2 were closer to Zelda, I feel like this one's a little bit closer to Metroid in that, in terms of like the classic games that they're looking at for reference.
Yeah.
But I had a good time with it. It's more like a straight on action game. The larger story is still very confusing. That series has always had a really
it has a problem.
It has a cool like just base idea, and if they had just kept it simple of like focusing on that idea of the apocalypse starting early, I feel like they could have had something interesting. But as they get 1, 2, and 3, they like different timelines going on at the same time, and there's all these conspiracy theories happening between like heaven and hell and stuff, and it just gets so confusing. So that larger story still continues to be confusing, but I liked Fury, the character. I think she's probably my favorite of the 3, just because she has the most personality. And it's good, but it does feel like an older game. It feels like an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3 game, and it's kind of its visuals and its action. It has its own like distinct art style, but it feels like an older game. It's weirdly nostalgic. To a certain degree, I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. Because as far as I know, like I'm the only one in the office who's finished it. I know you guys have started it, and as both of you guys are Darksiders fans, right? I mean, generally.
Oh yeah. I reviewed the first 2, and I'm right there with Andy. Like that's the type of game I would want to make.
Yeah.
Like,
it feels kind of like an old school action game,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the visuals. Like, there's something about like their design of just like, hell being colored with like a box of Skittles or like a giant root of a tree going into a skyscraper. And I'm just like, that's awesome. Like, that's cool. It's a good idea.
It's very comic booky, kind of
like, I don't know. It's like fantasy infecting like the real world. And I want to be in that place, right? Like, I want to be a part of that. And I like the idea of continuing on. And, let's get Darksiders 4 out so I can experience these, the apocalypse is all for the horsemen.
The larger goal of one game for each.
I think that's great. And then
Darksiders 76.
No, I don't want that.
That's number 5.
I'll skip that one. I like them as single player, just straight on. But
I'm about an hour in. I got to, I think maybe the exact same spot Andy is, like right just beyond the camp where it really kind of starts to open up a little bit in terms of mechanics and leveling up and all that stuff. But the Fury, I like her whip attack. I like the range she has on that. It feels powerful. I like the combos you can do with it. There's a lot of clunk to her movement, especially I'm playing on an Xbox One, and it's Xbox One X. And
brag.
There is, it doesn't seem like it with this game. The frame
I played
rate,
it on PC for what it's worth. So
the frame rate's kind of all over the place. Even when there's no action on screen, it just starts to dip and chug.
I saw that when I walked in.
Are you playing on Xbox as well? Or?
I'm playing on PC.
Okay.
With a controller, obviously, but I agree with Rainer that I didn't have chug problems either. I do like the fantastic. It does have a weird thing. I liked the old games because they felt animated, and the new one has a weird, like they tried to make realistic cars and humans next to like. Like
big
this
like,
woman with this like fire hair. It's not fire, but you know what I mean. Like this like kind of hair that's alive.
When you guys get a little further, you'll get some fire hair.
Those kind of things.
Spoiler.
That they don't quite sit together.
Yeah.
As well as they could. Right. They definitely, because you're right. You're like the tree part. I was like, that's awesome. This tree is totally cool. Yeah. I like running on these things, but I like would go to a building and the buildings look drab. It feels like a game that Gunfire's done a great job of finishing and putting a lot of polish into, but definitely was understaffed and has a little less production values than maybe they did in the past.
Yeah.
Which led to maybe their decisions, I think, of heading to a more action-based game. There's a Dark Souls element to it too, because I guess that's kind of the cliche now a little bit. And I think they did that with their VR game, which they did really well. They know their Dark Souls, but you collect souls and you turn them in, and that's how you level up and do other things.
What's that, so like Chronos? Is that what?
Whatever, they're souls. I mean, it has
I was just making sure that people knew what game you were referencing.
Oh, Chronos. Oh, yeah, Chronos. Yeah. The VR game. And so I think that stuff is there, and the combat's there. I did not like the story. It felt dated. It felt really dated. Like, and the way even they presented the story felt dated. And then I'd play the game and I'd be like, oh, that's right. I like the combat feels good, right?
Yeah.
But I will say this. That game is missing some animation and I feel like some key control points. Like you spin to grab onto a ledge to then spin out of a ledge onto the thing, and it's like the same. It's like they were like, oh man, we're out of animations. Use that same animation to do that. So like the double,
you can see the corners being cut.
Yeah, like the double jump doesn't feel good.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look good.
You get an upgrade later that helps with that. But I agree with you. I know what you're talking about.
Like
for sure.
that jump is bad. The like the closing of distance, which I know obviously probably that's the thing is you're gonna go, Andy. Yeah, you get a power for that later, right? You know, like
well, not everything. But I totally know what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah,
that spin that she does, it feels just a little weird.
It
right?
feels a little weird. Like it doesn't feel quite right. And she's like, she's badass, right? And she's running around. She's like, threatening everybody, right? She's mad. She's furious, right?
She lives up to her name.
And I like the returning characters that you see from previous Darksider games.
Yeah.
It definitely does feel good at points, but there's definitely stuff like even the first boss encounter is like, okay, now I want you to do some platforming, and you're like, do you want me to do some platforming? Are you sure you want me to do some platforming? Because that may not be what you do best at this point, or maybe with the amount of powers that I have. And it leaned into that, I think, a little early. So I'm sure it opens up. The story of killing the 7 deadly sins at times I did some eye rolling.
For sure. What I do like about it, though, which Darksiders has always been bad at, is that at least I know exactly what her goal is.
Yeah.
Because usually, like you're like a couple hours into 2, you're like, what am I doing? I'm like trying to make a case to take to a trial or something. I have no idea what I'm doing. But at least even though the story is still so confusing and impossible to follow, and just generally, I mean, honestly, just not great. At least her goal is clear.
Yes, her goal is very clear,
and you can tick off, which was good for me reviewing on a deadline and being like, okay, that was the 4th sin, that was the 5th sin. I've got about this much longer to go. So,
and did you feel the boss fights were worthy? Did you feel like every one of them was great?
They're all distinct, and they kind of like lean into the sin that you're fighting in kind of a fun way. But yeah, like, I mean, I don't want to go into too many spoilers, but like 1 is a gigantic monster, that's huge.
No way.
Yeah. What? I mean, because some are like human size, some are like gargantuan, and like that kind of stuff is cool. Like, and they're all memorable because they have that really distinct like comic book design, that was kind of established in the first 2 games. So, yeah, I mean, I think we had an interview with the director recently, and he even said like it's hard to kind of play that game after God of War earlier this year, because the production values, it's just they can't compete with that. And he even said in the interview, he's like a 2-hour sequence in God of War probably cost as much as Darksiders 3.
This is the entire game. I believe that.
Yeah, which I totally believe. But I think that like the layout of the world, the way, because like the way you use abilities, you don't go into pause screens or anything, but like you can like automatically equip this ice blade that lets you walk on water, which like because the water freezes below you, and that opens up new pathways in the world. So I think like that kind of stuff, I think they really nailed, like the design of the world and discovering hidden areas. And that stuff, like I think that stuff is strong, even where the production values are lacking.
I did feel like the gameplay, like they did a good job of like, oh, there's a thing I can pick up over here. Oh, there's a thing over here. Oh, over here. Oh, look, that's a wall I'm totally breaking later.
That's where I'm a little confused. You said it's not like Zelda, but I'm seeing those, or Metroid, those points where it's like, well, that purple flower thing I'll probably interact with, or this wall I could probably bust through.
Yeah.
Is that just giving you like a power up, or is it taking you to different areas? Kind of like those games.
It's kind of like Metroid. It's like once you have the purple power, which is like this big hammer, you can break your way through walls, which opens up a new path. But what you won't find are like dedicated dungeons where you go into an area, you find a new item, you use that to solve the puzzle, and then you move to the next dedicated item. It's all one interconnected series of pathways that you find new ways to unlock or climb. Or,
it's very Metroid-like. You get around the corner and there's a boss, and you fight it, and you kill it, and you move on, and that area still sits in the world.
Yeah, there's not distinct dungeons.
Not like Zelda. Gotcha.
No, that's where it's a lot different than the first 2.
Answer me this. Spoiler. Is the portal gun back?
No, it's not. No, that's, I
loved it.
There were some good puzzles.
Yeah, there were some good ones.
They did a good job at that.
Yeah, 2 in particular is a little underrated in its puzzle design, because like there's stuff where you're tossing yourself bombs through a clone of yourself, and that stuff. I miss that stuff. I liked that stuff a lot. But for what Darksiders 3 is, I think they did a good job, and I liked it.
So I have a question just as I was playing it. Like, I was kind of confused as to like what determined a save point or how I moved through the world. You know what I mean? It's not very clear.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever. It's Volgrim. Like whenever you
talk to him, it's kind of
that's where you will come back when you die.
Okay,
but
all right.
yeah, I don't think that is broadcast very well. Like you just kind of like eventually figure out like, oh, I talked to Volgrim back there, so I'm respawning here.
Yeah, because I was like, you kind of get you have like essentially a vial that refills to 2 that heals you, which is handy because you will take damage. The combat is
It can be tough.
It can be tough. But you're like, do I use it? Do I not use it? What refills it? What doesn't refill it? And then I noticed that when you use your like Super Saiyan moment, you refill your power bar.
Yeah.
And that when you like I traveled, like I used the fast travel and it refilled my health, and I was like, I don't know why that happened. I'm going to take those more often, I guess, because I'm assuming it resets those areas and like you kind of you need to battle through them again, but they don't have any real definition of what you're going through.
Yeah. Well, so you have there's I don't know the names, but like you have like one-time use things like health restores.
Yeah, exactly.
And
there's like small health.
But then there is one that refills on its own. That one it refills at like certain points, like you said, like going through serpent holes and stuff. But also you can refill it as you're fighting. Like if you see like green souls appear on screen that Fury eats up, like that will refill that. And you can get upgrades that make those appear more often, and you can actually get upgrades so you have more than 2. I think you can get like up to 5 or something like that. But it is one of those things, like I don't know if it's just that, I don't know if that's what they were going for, to kind of keep it a little vague, like there's some value in not just like constantly throwing tutorials at you, but there are some elements of the game where you're like, man, I didn't quite understand how that works.
I just didn't know where I was going to, I'd be like, if I died here, where would I come back?
Yeah.
Like,
Anytime you see Volgrim, just say hi. You don't have to buy anything or travel through a serpent hole. But
I do think it's smart that they keep the souls as the currency.
Yeah.
Like,
they did.
For
they had
leveling you up and buying other gear. Like, that just immediately just tells you, like, kill everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's
and that's
value
fun.
in starting fights.
Yeah.
It's also a little friendlier than Dark Souls in that I think you get like 2 shots to get your souls back, which is handy. So
yeah, that is nice. That is nice.
Do you guys think you'll see it to the end? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I have to, right? Like,
no one's making you. You don't have to.
I love that series. From Joe Mad's art, in 1 and 2, and the design they had. I do want to see Fury's story through the end, and I hope they do make a 4th one. And
I do too.
And we get to see who's the last one.
Strife.
Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Genji from Overwatch, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
that'd be
does.
fun.
Yeah. Do you think you'll see it to the end?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'll put it this way. I was on a roller coaster last night. In the first hour, I was like, dear God, there's no way I'm going to finish this game. I just need to get ready for it. And then towards the end, I was like, once it opened up and I kind of was starting to, I don't know, just to kind of like lean in, I think, to like their game, like when there was more gameplay than there was like tutorials and talk.
Yeah, which is where the game is better.
Yes,
for sure.
I felt better about the game at that point. I was like, I'm going to play it again.
Yeah.
I will see where the rabbit hole leads. But I mean, I do think it's unfortunate that it feels like just outside of Darksiders 1 and 2. Do you know what I mean?
It's different.
That it does feel like, yes, it's this world, but it's I don't know what's a good example, but it doesn't. It's not the same.
It's
and it's noticeable.
Star Wars, going to a different director, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it is. It's a lot of the same people.
A lot is the same,
but it is different. They're totally. I mean, because I remember even playing preview builds of it. I was like, where are the puzzles?
Yeah.
Where are the puzzles? And I even talked to one of the puzzle designers, and he's like, oh, there are puzzles in there. But then ultimately in the game, like, there's really only a handful.
Yeah.
And like I said, I miss that puzzle element from the first 2, but I still had a good time with that game, and I ended up liking it a lot.
Well,
so
that's great. Well, all right. Well, thanks, and we'll certainly be mentioning, I'm sure, on Twitter how our Darksiders adventures go forth. Thank you both. What we have left now is we have reader mail, listener mail, and then also we finally have an interview with the Just Cause 4 director. That will finish off the show. So thank you so much. I think we'll have you. Oh, are you guys going to do?
We're sticking around, man.
Oh, you're
you keep
sticking
trying
around.
to send us off.
I do. I need a producer who says, like, in my ear, going like, "Andy, shut up! Don't try to kick them off the
Yeah,
show.
Leo,
They're staying
what
on
an
the show."
interesting idea.
Andy, you're doing great.
We need to take a break, but we'll come back, and we're going to come back and do reader mail. So let's all three clap out just to put a spot on it. Hello, and welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We are now at our Queen stage, our penultimate section here. Because after this, we have Ben Reeves in an interview with Francesco Antolini of Just Cause 4, which I hope to God I did not just murder your name.
It's Ben Reeves. You had it right.
And we're excited about that, so please make sure you stick around this. But this is our last section, which is reader. Listener, viewer,
people do not read the podcast. Andy.
It's all there.
No, as someone transcribes it for Andy every week.
No, but I mean, they probably read the magazine. I don't know if you know this. We have a magazine.
Guess.
We need a name for this, like Game Informer fan.
There we go.
Game
There you
Informer
go. Fan
GI
emails.
fan.
Yes. If you are in on the GI, these are
I
the
guess you
questions
don't even have
from
to be
you.
a fan.
Yeah, you
just,
could hate us.
just
you probably-
person
yeah.
person emails.
Person from the void
Yeah,
comes.
there you go.
Yes. Okay. All right.
And of course, we'll pick our best, right?
And yes, so I am tasked with picking a best question,
Yeah.
which we will discuss at the end, and then we put it on this map that I still don't understand, and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. All right. Our first question from Wes from St. Louis, Missouri. Hello, Ben and crew.
Oh, you already messed up.
Oh,
Wes.
yeah.
Sorry.
You lose. You have to make a choice. 3D Mario games or 2D Mario games. Whichever one you don't choose gets snapped out of existence Infinity Wars style.
Okay. So that Infinity War style implies that it's not that their history is deleted, right? Like we still recognize that they existed at one time.
They're just gone forever.
They're gone forever.
And they can't. He's saying that, like, if you pick one, the other one's never
Gotcha.
coming back.
This might be blasphemy, but I'm going 3D. I prefer 3D Mario in general. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, it's an interesting choice, Reiner.
You know, we've just gotten a bunch of great 3D ones, so I'm going to go 2D. Snap those 3D suckers out of existence.
Wow, that's just.
And I'd like to see what they'd do with a new modern 2D.
I don't want to get rid of Galaxy.
I'm only picking 4D Mario games.
That smell, I guess. Is that what 4D is?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just adding a D to pick something different. That's really hard. I actually think the thing is, you almost, and this is going to sound weird, you almost have to go with 3D Mario games because they do so many odes to 2D games in the 3D Mario games.
yeah.
Like you have those like sections or areas where you do that.
That's cheating.
Maybe.
Yeah,
But that's a good answer.
Did those sequences?
You saved both of them.
I saved them both, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going with the best answer.
Damn
which
it.
The best answer here
Yeah,
is
it's a good
3D
answer.
Mario games.
Oh, I got it right.
So
Well, you weren't thinking along those lines.
No,
so.
I just like 3D Mario more
Yeah,
than 2D
I was
Mario.
trying to work the system. This one is a bit odd, and I don't know that I can even think of an answer. But John from Louisville, Kentucky, the other John, it says, maybe I'm biased because my first experience with dual analog controls was Ape Escape, but I really like when the right thumbstick is used for more than just camera direction. Twin stick shooters have somewhat scratched the itch, and other games such as Brothers have used the sticks in interesting ways, but I think Skate is the only other game to come close to what originality I found intriguing about having two sticks on a controller. I'd love to hear what you all think about games that use joysticks in unconventional ways, and any third-person games you might recommend that use the right stick for something other than camera control.
The God of Wars, the dodge roll, directional dodge roll is really nice.
Yeah.
Football games have used them, right? Like sports games, like
For different
Yeah.
throws and stuff,
like
right?
yeah, like they've used. I mean, not always to the best effect, but they've done that, right? Mm-hmm. Like hockey and things like that, right?
Sure.
I think of the weird one for me that I think of is on the original Xbox. You guys remember Advent Rising? That like it was supposed
Donald
to be
Mustard.
Yeah, it's
the
Donald Mustard.
Fortnite
chair.
now.
Yeah. That game, I really like the action in that game because what you did is you kind of had like telekinetic powers, and the right analog stick you would basically flick it in the direction you wanted to throw like force blasts and stuff like that. So I thought that was cool. I like that game.
Darksiders 3, just switching targets.
I guess
Works
still
well.
camera. I guess.
What was the game with the two guys that?
It's Brothers,
Brothers.
Andy.
No, not Brothers.
Cookies and Cream.
Cookies and Cream.
Oh, the From Software
Reiner, by the way,
classic?
Reiner is so good at reading Andy nonsense. Like, I'll be like, the thing with the guy, and Reiner, like, we should be on like $25,000 pyramid.
There's
or
only
whatever.
like 5 answers, Andy, and Cookies and Cream is one of them.
Is one of them. Yeah, and so that was amazing, Reiner.
Wow.
Thank you. But yeah, that was a great game.
Cookies and
That
Cream.
was a great game. It was kind of one of the early like you controlled.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
From Software, right? Isn't it?
Yep.
Like pre-Dark Souls, pre-Demon Souls.
That was the prequel.
That was the world
It's
like
where it
before
all
everything went to
began.
hell.
It's where it all began. So all right, I think we answered that question. I'll go with yes. Christian from Modesto, California. Hello, GI crew. Happy Thanksgiving. As I played through Red Dead 2, one of my major complaints about the game was a lack of an easy-to-use fast travel system. Every time I'd post about it on social media, I'd always get comments on, "You don't understand the pacing of the game." Or, "I've played 35 hours of Red Dead 2 and never once felt the need to fast travel."
Those are all Matt Burt's, his alts, by the way.
Yeah. I personally feel I personally feel every open world game needs an easy to use fast travel system available right away. So my question is this: how important is having fast travel available to you in any open world game?
Very important. I think it, allows different people to experience the game at the pace they want. I think that is a detriment to Red Dead to a degree. It does have fast travel options eventually.
Yeah, they're
kind
limited
of.
though.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of immersion, it does take you out whenever you just have a load screen pop up. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that about having no real means of it, just keeping the action flowing. But I used it all the time toward the end of like Grand Theft Auto 5 when I was just mopping up the city. I'd take the taxi all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be there early. I don't need it right away.
Yeah.
But I do miss it in Red Dead. And I like in like Breath of the Wild, it was almost like a reward for exploration was getting more fast travel options. So I want it to sort of slowly
Yeah, like it
appear,
works for the
you know?
end game. Like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you're going for all the collectibles or the side missions and you don't want to go like all 5
Yeah.
miles across the map.
I think Skyrim does it pretty well too, right? Where you just kind of like when you get to a new location. I mean, that's kind of how Zelda worked too,
Yeah.
I guess. But like, I like that. I kind of like that system. So.
Yeah, I always hate taking the control away from the director, from the vision of the team. But at the same time, too, I say to myself, and I agree. I actually agree with this letter, is that it's interactive entertainment, and everyone likes to do things in different ways. And I feel like if you want the reward later, if you don't want to understand the context. I talked to many developer, I thought early on when story was still, I feel like, budding in games. Do you know what I mean? And they'd be like, well, we're putting in story and gamers are angry about it, like in focus groups. And they're really like, you're slowing down my game, right? Like, I want Doom. Like, I want it to be like fast action. And they were looking for solutions that split the difference, that enabled someone to play the game like Doom and someone who wanted to get story could get it. And that's how we get like audio files and books that we can read and all those other things that have like created and expanded the world. So I always look at games that I like game directors in particular that are willing to maybe give away some of their creative control and power of like, I want you to feel lonely and lost in this, Western time to like, it's a game. You know what I mean? Like sometimes just being engaged and I only have an hour and I want to play and I don't want my hour spent, my horse died in the middle of nowhere and I have to walk back. Like, be respectful of me being a gamer and be respectful of it being a game, I guess, to some degree, and letting people make their own decisions. That said, I get it. That's what Rockstar wanted. They wanted it to have that vibe. That's what they did, and I respect that decision, but I do like it when they do respect it as a game and you have more options.
Yeah.
That's my
Agreed.
that's my long convoluted answer on that one. How about that? Well, I'm going to make a longer show than I should. Okay. Next question. Mike from, oh my gosh.
Where is that? Is that in
it's
Ohio?
Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany.
I think you nailed it.
Sounds right.
I'm going to get letters from that town that are like, you!
Got it right. Is what they're
No,
gonna say.
that's not what they're going to say. Okay, hello, GI Show. Do you think mainstream games are relying too heavily on RPG elements like stat improvements or progress bars. In the early 2000s, I played hundreds of hours of Counter-Strike just because it was fun. Nowadays, I find myself annoyed that my rank isn't going up fast enough in Blackout, despite enjoying both games about the same. Have things been too, to break it down, have things been too RPG-ified?
I kind of like the last question. I go back and I have two different answers for it. Yes, I miss that simplicity of it. It's just a game and that's it. At the same time, I like having that carrot, right? Like that gives me new stuff and compels me to play it every single day. You know, I like that. I like both. I think there isn't a wrong answer there.
I like watching numbers go up.
I do like watching numbers go up too. But once again, to my previous answer too, I would go with why not have toggles in the options that are like, hey, I don't care about player growth. I don't want to see others. I don't want to feel, because a lot of times they use that to drive you to play the game more or invest and buy things in the game. And I respect that. And I think that's one of the things that's nice too about gaming now is that there's an indie guy out there or gal that agrees with you and your perspective on I hate this stuff and will make a cool game in that genre that doesn't have all that crap on it, right? That there's someone making it somewhere. But I like options. I'd prefer options. Yeah. But I like experience.
I would say Blackout and something like Overwatch are kind of if you really break it down, simplified to the point that you're not getting stuff that's affecting the game at all. You're not prestiging in Call of Duty to get it like you used to get a new weapon, right? You're just getting skins and stuff like that. So I think they kind of have.
It's definitely it's not required, but if you don't want to look at it and they make you look at it, I hear you.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely. I love that everything's been RPGified. Yeah. But I am someone who can grind experience far more than I should be able to.
Most humans would be able to.
I would agree with that. All right. Lucas Deluxe here, writing from Iota, Louisiana. Or Ledoux. Lucas Ledoux. Let's go with Lucas Ledoux. Elder Gods Country. I was just wondering if anyone at the table knew of any game franchise with a worse identity crisis than Dead Island. The series started less than 10 years ago, and we've gotten one mainline game, Dead Island, a single-player expansion, Rider White Campaign, a non-numbered sequel, Riptide, a MOBA, Dead Island Epidemic, a third-person stealth game, Escape Dead Island. I'm already annoyed. We're not even through. A mobile tower defense game, Dead Island Survivors, a spiritual successor, Dying Light, a sequel to the spiritual successor, Dying Light 2, and a numbered sequel in the development hell, Dead Island 2. P.S. While researching this topic, I learned that Lionsgate purchased the rights to make a movie based on the announcement trailer of the game. Have you ever heard of anything like that happening? Why is Dead Island so weird?
To hear it listed out like that is really puts in perspective. God, Escape Dead Island. I forgot about that one. Jeez, that's a good question.
They tried to turn that thing into a multi-game franchise.
Well, the problem is the trailer was so cool, but it wasn't representative of the game. Yeah. So it could be anything. So they were like, well, let's just make it literally anything.
So his question was, have we ever heard of anything?
Is there anything else like that?
I think what he's pointing to, and I'm reading through it, is just that there is some serious madness going on. They didn't stick to anything. They're not. Yeah. They're all over the map. This is schizophrenia.
Yeah.
At its truest form. What other brand has had this problem?
Nothing to that degree, I don't think. He did the research, right?
Yeah.
But you can kind of look at games like Dead Space that got the comic book adaptation and then the book and then the DVD short movie.
But I feel like that's expanded universe stuff.
Yeah, but it's just wow, what do I got to play to keep up on your games, or what do I got to consume? Halo, all that stuff.
Yeah. My kind of weird answer is it's another version of it, but it's actually, I would argue, been done pretty well, is the Mario brand. That can go anywhere.
There's things he hasn't done, yeah. But they kept that's the thing, I think the difference there is that they kept the mainline stuff going, and then you're like, whatever, they made this crazy Mario game. I either like it or hate it.
They did it right.
You never had to judge a thing you liked solely on the weird satellite.
Yeah.
They even fooled us. They turned Mario 2, a different game into Mario 2, and we're like, oh, that's awesome.
It was good. I like that game.
It's a fun game.
Yeah. I don't even know what's going on with Dead Island 2. Is it just done? Is it just not coming out? They had that another nice trailer, what's that, 3-4 years ago now, and now I think it was playable at a PAX or something, and now it's just gone. I don't know.
And I
there's Dying Light too.
I'm gonna be a little mean too. All these names are so forgettable. I mean, it's called Dead Island. Like, you need to like invest so that people will remember that something is called Dead Island, because that sounds like something you make up for a thing. You're like, oh yeah, we went to that like Dead Island or something. Like
that zombie thing.
They should do a better job of managing.
It works
their
for
brand.
one story. That's it. You're not going back.
Okay, we've got Jake from Blackwood, New Jersey. Hey everyone, since it's getting to that time of year, I thought I'd ask what the worst present you've ever received during the holidays was. One Christmas when I was young, my great aunt actually boxed and wrapped dead bugs to go along with the microscope. I was maybe 7 years old. Who the F wants a microscope with bugs?
I wonder if he opened the bugs first, or if it was
I mean, there's something to be said to giving gifts that way, where you get like bugs, and then you're like, it's a microscope. And
I don't know if I have a good answer for this one.
I got a banana seat bicycle. Remember those? The long seats on the bike? But that's when everybody was moving over to like the 10 speeds. Like this dates me a little bit.
Yeah, so
like I was like, everybody kind of making fun of me. So that wasn't great.
I think the only ones I ever got was just the weird one that everyone got, which was just the like, oh, hey, this sweater that I've been dying for that is the wrong size. Thank you, Aunt. Insert name, right?
Well, anytime you
I've got
grab
plenty
a
of those.
package, like when you're a kid, a present, you grab it, and if it's squished, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, you're like,
You got to put on your game face then. Like,
at
this
some
isn't
point
what
you're
I
like,
want.
you're like, please just be socks, because I can probably use more socks, and I don't have to like. No one's gonna be like, hey, would you try on those socks for me? Like, because if it's a sweater or shirt,
You immediately
at some
gotta
point
try it on.
someone has to. You have to
Yeah.
wear it to something.
You have to be photographed in that.
You have to
at
be
some
photographed.
point,
You have to be like, well, they have to show that you liked it. And you're like, well, I don't like it. I don't really want it. And so. Yeah, I would put that down.
Yeah.
But no bad game things. But I mean, microscope's not bad. The science is good.
It's a good
Let's not
present.
forget science is important.
What about you, Kyle?
I don't know. My parents they've always been good. My dad in particular has always been good at researching things. Like, so I never got like the knockoff version of something because he.
No GoBots in your
Yeah,
world,
no,
huh? Okay.
I've been pretty lucky that way. But you know, I had to learn to make that face for the distant aunt sweaters.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Hi, GI crew. I just mailed in my Nintendo Switch for repair for the 5th time in 3 months. That's bad luck.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's bad luck. Though I had this last week. I was traveling and I was having the like controller disconnect thing.
Were you near an aquarium?
No, is that what happens?
It's on the list of like keep your system away from
from
aquariums.
aquariums?
Yeah, it messes with the wireless signal to the controller.
Well, I think it was annoying. It was really annoying. But no, I was not close to an aquarium. But thank you for asking.
Yeah. But anyway, continue.
As someone who travels for a living, the console was initially awesome. But at this point, it has been such a huge pain in the ass mailing it repeatedly to get it fixed that I can say without hyperbole, this is the worst console experience I've ever had. Attached a picture of the last 4 warranties from Nintendo. This brings me to my question. What's the worst console you have owned? Not worst like game lineup wise, just the worst console because the most pain caused you personally.
360.
Yeah.
Anytime it'd freeze, your eye would go off the TV down to the 360 to see if there was a red ring. I mean, there was a good chance it was. Like, I think I bricked 8 of them.
I still pick up boxes in the house, and I'll go like, what's in this box? And I'll open it up, and I'll go like, it's another dead Xbox. It's
like mice around
and why
the
did I
house.
like go around and hide them everywhere, too? Like, that I was like, oh, this is going to get better. I should have thrown them away, and I didn't. But that thing was a brick.
It's still, you don't want to throw it away though, you know,
You
because it
don't,
is like
but
a piece of hardware, but it's useless, you know. I think I went through. It was like guaranteed. Like, it wasn't just a matter of like, oh, it might have a problem. It was just a matter of when. And yeah, I think I had to go through a bunch, and my wife went through a bunch for sure.
And I always feel, you know, I would say I don't know if this experience is true that Nintendo's fixed it 5 times. I don't know what they're charging him for, but at that point, Nintendo. Send him a new Switch. I mean, if it's been broken that much, Chris from Westfield, New Jersey, Nintendo, get him a new Switch. That's a broken Switch that should not be breaking like that. That's faulty.
Unless he doesn't have a carrying case, and then it's on him.
Yeah, or drops it a lot. Do you, Chris? Do you drop it? I mean, you got to take into account. You have to take care of the thing.
Yeah.
You can't throw it. It's
Not
made to
far.
be thrown.
You can't throw it far.
You can't throw it. My Switch, by the way, is on death's door. It's like It's like there's a big crack in the top, and it's like coming apart, and the flip stand doesn't fit on there anymore. So I'm just like, I am
What have you been doing?
Yeah.
nothing. It's in a case. I guess I bring it
It's
to work
not a
every day.
NedgeCon that you twist to drive.
Oh.
Do you get really angry, or are you just like,
I don't know. Like it's cracking. I'm just like there's the rumor that there's going to be like a new model next year, and I'm just like trying to
Hold out?
I'm
You're
just
just
like,
saying,
please just stay in one piece until then.
Yeah, Do you want a new? My own question. Do you want a new Switch? Do we want to like an XL,
No,
like
I do
high res, a Switch?
I do because
HR?
because mine's
I don't know what-
falling apart. But like I don't want to have to buy a new Switch. Like I think the hardware design is fine. I'm not really.
I can tell you right now, if they put out a new one, they will not put out enough units to meet demand.
what?
And
Nintendo? No.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you that right now. There's not going to be enough, and then there's going to be like a mad run. People are going to be angry. It's going to be like, what's the toy of the Christmas holidays?
I would get an XL.
Like a larger
just a big
version.
You have a big one?
Yeah.
That was a Game and Farcer gag. It was just the size
I'd
of the
love
TV.
it. Like a 40-inch Switch screen. Yeah.
I would not want to travel next to you on a plane. I actually think it's
Just
pretty.
holding the control sticks like this.
I actually hope they don't make it bigger. I hope they just like make the screen. It could be a little
Better
bit higher.
res.
Yeah, it could be a
Yeah.
better res, and
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay with that. But I mean, I'm with you. I don't know if I'd be like, do I buy it for the higher res? But I like the size. I think the size is pretty
It's
much
good.
perfect.
Yeah, it's
pretty
good.
much
Yeah.
perfect.
Maybe the Joy-Cons a little more ergonomic, maybe. I don't know how that complicates things with being able to take the new Joy-Cons and put them on an old Switch or something.
I mean,
but
if the analog sticks were the same size as like console, I wouldn't complain about that either.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. Yeah. There's times when they're annoying. Okay. All right. Okay. Brendan in Atlanta. Hey, GI crew. As we barrel forward into the end of the year, I feel like that a new category is in need in the Game of Year discussions. Ben has often brought up something I have done forever and listened to podcasts while playing game. That said, what is the podcast game of the year in 2018? Mine is hands down Fallout 76, as there is no reason to ever stop listening, as there is nothing to listen to.
Audio
Keep it up.
tapes.
So basically, it's like, what is the best game to listen to podcasts?
Yeah. Fallout's an odd one because I guess, I mean, if you're not chatting with people.
I mean,
you have audio files.
He's
That's
literally
where you get
saying,
story.
He's
Yeah.
literally saying the best reason is because there's nothing to do in it, and you
Yeah,
just sit
yeah,
there and
yeah.
listen to it. It's like you might as well not even have a game.
You know,
It's kind of an underhanded rip on Fallout 76.
I thought Red Dead would be one because, you spend a lot of time riding a horse. But because stuff almost always happens between point A and point B, I found myself like pausing my podcast all the time. So I thought that would be a good one, but ultimately, like, I didn't really feel like it worked out that well. I'm trying to think of what else came out this year. That was like it kind of almost has to be like mindless action, sort of like Assassin's Creed was a little bit closer for me because I wasn't as engaged in the sort of story as I was in Red Dead. So maybe that's why I didn't mind kind of just listening to podcasts.
I mean, first of all, everyone that listens to a podcast while they play a game, you're the best. Especially if you listen to this podcast. I'm weird. I don't like listen. I like the game music. A lot of times I don't want to listen to like Logic when I'm like across the prairie or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I love both things, but I like the vibe that the music teams and like sound effects. I don't know why. I want the whole experience. I
There
don't want
isn't,
anybody. I wouldn't want even me talking over your game experience.
There isn't a podcast that's better than any game soundtrack, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather listen to that stuff than
I think
other people talk.
Unless it's
about-
us, because we're so good.
soundtracks.
No, this show sucks too.
All right, moving on.
Ask again when Cork and Hanson are on. They're the big podcast. While
They are.
gaming
Yeah, that is
guys.
actually. We have a bad panel for that question. So here we go. Marcus Alt from Minneapolis. Hello, Ben and GI crew. I wanted to let you know that Ben Hansen's impression of Joe Juba getting frustrated about the Game of the Year arguments to the point that he is stuttering and stammering, saying, "You can't," has become a staple inside joke in my friend group.
Oh, that's lovely.
That is lovely. My question is, where do babies
It's
come
kind
from?
of mean, actually.
Which?
I don't know why we're asking where babies come from, but we are. No, but seriously, who will each of you be maining in Super Smash Brothers Ultimate? I'm going for Lucas and Rosalina myself. I got to give this question points for wandering.
Yeah, that went all over the
That
place.
went all over the
It
place.
insulted someone.
It
It showed our host is insulting
or it praised Ben Hansen for his impression.
For an excellent
for
impression.
being a jerk.
It's a
Kind
very
of.
good impression.
But
I don't know
being
if
a
you've heard
jerk to
it.
Joe Juba to be fair, that's Joe's stick.
Yeah.
Is to
He
kind of
usually
bother
starts it.
people. And so when it comes back at him, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad. But I don't know that I have a I mean, I kind of want to wait to see it. I mean, it's like everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm Link. I always play. That's like
Which
my
Link
main.
though?
The standard one.
Not
The
Fox?
Adult Link?
Adult.
Because he's
Hyrulean.
He's changing because he's going to be Breath of the Wild Link, so all his items and abilities and stuff
I don't
are
like
shifting.
that. I'm not playing it then.
No, I Toon Link. I always like. I don't know why. I just specifically like the shorter Link. And then I don't usually like the big heavy characters, but I really want to try K. Rool.
I want to try Ridley because he's like a dinosaur.
Yeah,
He's from
you would be
Metroid.
into Ridley. Yeah, he's powerful. Do you play Smash Brothers, Andy?
Very little.
When you're forced?
No, it's not like when I'm forced. I mean, it's fun for a bit. There was a time in my life when I loved fighting games.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there was a time I thought I was pretty good. If there was a pro circuit back then, maybe. But there wasn't. And I don't know. I just don't play fighting games that much anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'll play them a bit and I'm like, yeah, fighting games are cool. And then I kind of move on.
Yeah.
I don't sit on them, but I love watching them. Evo's great.
Yeah.
You're
You've been getting into like Dragon Ball, and
Yeah,
you historically hate anime.
I do. I mean, and I don't like. By the way, to be clear, I liked watching the battles. I thought it was it was the highlight of Evo this year. Super enjoyed it. I'll watch, an occasional weird Smash Brothers tournament that's going on in Idaho or something. That's on Twitch. I watch those things. I do like watching those. So I mean, I'm down to watch fighting games. I like the drama, but playing them, I get a little bored.
Sure.
But, just because I think a lot of it too is that back then I lived with a bunch of other people and we always had kind of verses ready to go and it was fun to be competitive all the time. And now I just don't.
It's harder.
It's harder. It's harder. But great question. I think.
Do you have it? Did you? Oh, you wanted to wait and see. That's right. You wanted
We
to see the
always
whole
want to
cast.
wait and see.
I was wondering. I was asking if you had answered your main for Smash Brothers, and you said you want to wait and
Yeah,
try
I mean,
everybody out.
I usually pick something boring or stupid. Do you know what I mean? One or the other.
Yeah.
I will say, my interest in Smash is higher this year because of Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I would sit in my living room and play Smash Brothers. Once again, just my own style, not dissing the game any before anybody gets all upset about it. But on the go, I could see being on a flight and be I bet it'd be fun to play Smash for a while.
Yeah.
That kind of fits the thing. But I'm more interested in playing Dead Cells. That kind of that's the kind of stuff.
That's the game.
Or Civ or Diablo. That's the stuff I'm kind of excited about on my Switch. But I think it's amazing that Smash is gonna destroy things this year. It's gonna sell $1 billion. I'm pretty sure it's gonna go crazy. People are gonna love it. And
Everybody's gonna buy it.
By the way, I can't wait to watch it when people compete with it.
Yeah.
And that's probably where I'm at. People keep saying hi to Ben and crew, and it's really annoying.
Well, he's usually the host.
Just change it to Andy.
They did not know he was going to be gone this week and that I would be filling in. This is ridiculous. Hiya, Ben and crew. First time writing in, but faithful magazine subscriber since 2007. Love all the work you guys do.
Wow.
Gotta praise for Ben, blah, 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 blah. And for being the only opinions of video games I trust. Oh, thank you. Anyway, I'm a huge Bethesda fan, with Bethesda Game Studios being the focal point of my fandom. Fallout 76 is bad. Really bad. Fallout 4 felt like it was trying too hard to bring in new fans. Are we seeing the downfall of Bethesda? Bum, bum, bum. In terms of creativity.
Is that specifically game studios
I
or
think,
Bethesda as a publisher?
I'll finish. I think this might clarify a little bit. I just don't understand how they can make Oblivion, Skyrim, and Fallout 3 and just not be good anymore. Bethesda reminds me more and more of EA nowadays. Any reason I should have hope in one of my favorite developers of all time, or should I look to Project Red as the new king of RPGs? There's a little shade thrown there.
Yeah.
So Witcher 3 is better than Red Dead 2. P.S. That's their P.S. So, Jonathan, thank you for your note, other than the calling me Ben. First of all, I'm going to start answering the question. I know I have a panel here that I'm supposed to be asking.
You're the host.
No, I think Bethesda's still a great studio. People are going to, and by the way, I don't know that Bethesda thinks they made a mistake. That's probably a really good question as well. I think the community's disappointed. I think the game stability, as we discussed earlier, is bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think Skyrim or Fallout 3 was the last great game from Bethesda Studios. That's just nonsense, in my opinion. They're going to make more great games for you. But to be clear, not every game is for you. Right? Not every game's for everybody. That's always important to remember. Like sometimes they just make games for somebody else, not you, and that's okay. But
They have not topped anything since Skyrim. I mean,
Skyrim
but,
was last.
I mean, I thought Fallout 4 was great. I thought Fallout 3 was great. So they still make amazing games. This is just a swing and a miss right now. Like, could get better as time goes on.
Yeah, it's not over. It's not over yet. Until they pull the plug on it, there's still a chance. But to the point, like, let's be happy that they can make great RPGs, and CD Projekt Red can as well. And by the way, I don't know that Witcher 3 has to be better than Red Dead either, not to go down that path, but like, I mean, like, they can be great for different people and still be great games. And like, it's amazing that we live in a world that has Witcher 3 and Red Dead in it. It's a better place because that's some crazy games and some crazy big games made by the way, love you all, but you're insane. Like, you are making crazy, insane games. Those games are so big and they're crazy. Right? And they're insane. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything to add? Am I just I
added my
I'm
2 cents.
rambling.
Yeah, I think they're allowed to have a couple stumbles, but that doesn't mean they're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
No one's perfect.
Yeah. No one is perfect. Thank you. Especially not Ben Hansen.
He won't listen to
I
this,
know he
I'm
won't.
sure.
I know he won't. Chris Reardon from New Bedford, Massachusetts. From the recent, I think that's what MA is, right? Or is that, yeah, that's Massachusetts.
Yeah.
From the recent rumors for Microsoft will be releasing an Xbox with no disk drive, it seems more and more likely that we are heading towards an all-digital future for gaming. My own PS4 library is about 80% digital at this point. I'm curious about what you think this could mean for the future of the legendary Game Informer Vault and game collecting in general. Will there come a time when GI is restoring hard drives full of downloaded games and binders full of game codes because there isn't a physical copy of the game available? Thanks.
That's a good question.
We think about this a lot, don't we, Reiner?
Yeah, I mean, we look at the vault and you can see as each generation comes and goes, there's less games
The
on
shelves
it.
are getting smaller.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I mean, I don't want to sound like a little bit of an ass, but I'm going to sound a little bit like an ass. And game companies just don't even want to send us copies anymore. And we even send them. We're like, hey, we want a copy for the vault. We think it's important to keep one, and they'll be like, sucks to be you. You know, and I think that is a reality. I think there's something to be said for the loss of gaming, that there are games that are digital only that disappear and will never be seen again, that there is something to having a physical copy made. I think there's companies like Limited Run that are bringing out games that would otherwise not see a physical release. I think, once again, as I go with choice, people that want digital games, killer, have at it. Great. People that want physical copies, have at it.
Yeah.
Great, right? And I hate a future where we don't have choice. That's my only thing. And I get it that physical copies take more investment from the publishers, and I realize there's a little risk involved. But I hope we don't see a day, because, by the way, those binders full of game codes, those game codes are limited. Like, you can't pick up a 2-year-old game code and use it. It won't work.
Yeah.
It just plain and simple won't work. And once they turn off the servers and everything else, those games are gone.
Well, even if you have the physical copy.
Yeah, if you have
it
the
might
physical,
need to do a check-in with a server.
And it might be gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame. And I've seen too, like, there's the game, the ESA and others have battled against companies that are trying to preserve these games and trying to preserve that code. And game companies themselves will completely wipe drives when they're done making a game or done with the game, and we're seeing things lost. And I think, not to sound my movie quote, that belongs in a museum. Like, I think that stuff belongs in a museum, right? And I think that game history is important. And I think our game vault was, I still love our game vault. It's no longer the greatest game vault in the world. There might have been a time when we were, but now there's better collectors. Yeah, there was better collectors out there than us. But we think it's important, and we still use it, and we still love it
every day.
And we think it's important, and we think the history of games is important. And I think it'll be sad if it's all just downloaded games someday. If just to be clear, if we don't do something to preserve those games or some way to access those games, it's not like illegal, right? Because that's the thing is, I'm not pro pirate games and I'm not pro any other stuff, but like, we need to be able to preserve and interact with that history because that history is important, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So send us a solution at
Yeah.
podcast@gameinformer.com.
All right, should we keep going? Are we done? Do you want to keep going? I got two more. I got two
You're
more.
the
pages.
host.
You got two pages? All right,
Don't
we'll keep
deny
going.
them.
All right, we're not going to deny them. All right. Mike from Chicago. Hey, GI Crew. I was thinking about my favorite games of the year, and I noticed that they are almost all big titles like Spider-Man and God of War. Usually I have a few smaller titles in the mix, but outside of Return of the Obra Dinn, my list is pretty mainstream. Can you name some smaller titles that you really like that might have flown under the radar this year?
Yuku's Island Express. Love that game. It's like Pinball Metroid. It's great.
Yeah.
Play it.
My
Forgotten Anne.
Oh, Forgotten Anne. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I always forget about her.
It's
Yeah.
a pertinent title.
Yeah, that's a good one. Check it out.
My favorite, which really like surprised me in a huge way, like my favorite smaller like indie game this year is Iconoclasts. Like the story in that game is insane. Like when we have our meeting to discuss like our top 10 moments of the year and stuff like that. The end of that game I want to at least discuss, which I don't know, it'll be tough because I don't want to spoil it, but like it blew my mind. Like that game's awesome. Play Iconoclast. I think it came out on Switch recently. It's very good.
There's another one, Full Metal Furies.
I didn't play that one.
I think that's one. That's a good game.
Far Lone Sails. That's another one that I liked.
Yeah.
I like one. I think it was this year. Picross was $8 on the Switch store. I just
I've
finished,
played the hell out of that.
I just finished. I'm working on Mega Picross now.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you think about stupid Picross. I've loved Picross for
You're
decades.
talking to me.
I know.
I would never call stupid Picross.
I know you would. I'm just talking to the world. I'm talking.
okay.
I'm old man on top of mountain screaming at the world.
And
Okay,
I'm
instead of
holding you
Smash
up.
Brothers, who's your favorite Picross character?
There isn't one, but I gotta tell you, when you finish the pictures and you look at what they make, that's still one of my favorite. I still think
Yeah.
about the backhoe, which was the answer
Yeah.
to the very first Picross, but I was like, that's a what?
Andy and I fell in love with Picross on Game Boy. Like
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
like, that was before the internet, all that stuff, super old. But we got to this one picture and you had to say what it was when you completed it. And we had no idea. We were just like, some kind of vehicle. And it's like, we later found out it's backhoe. And we're like, what the hell is a
It's just
backhoe?
and it's like, like you dig.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I didn't
And it
know
was like
this.
8
I
pixels,
learned
right?
this at that point.
Yeah.
And I love Picross. It's if you have a Switch,
Yeah, it's great.
I love it. I can't believe it's $8. And the best part about it too is when you finish Picross, it has a thing that comes up like a message. We hope you enjoyed playing Picross. I hope in the future you play more Picross. Thank you, the Picross team. And I was like, I love these guys.
There's
Like, keep it going.
There's another one on there that because it looks, when you see it on the store, I don't know what it's called. I'd have to find it. Maybe I'll look it up and I'll send it to you, Andy. But it's like, it's from Jupiter, like the Picross
Yeah,
team
yep,
at
yep.
Nintendo. But it's like themed around this like Japanese anime cute animal brand that like
lost
has,
Andy.
I know it's never made its way to the United States. I watch a fair bit of anime. I have no idea who these characters are, but it's like it is a Jupiter Picross game that just happens to have this theme that I was like, I might have to buy this just because it's more Picross.
That does sound. I mean, I don't really care what the picture looks like. I mean, that's the thing is you get the picture and you go like, huh, and move on.
I
right?
guess
Like,
that's a teacup. I don't know.
and so yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for that. So that's my under. But also too, we in our games of the year, hopefully, I know we talked about that earlier with the awards. Hopefully, we'll shine a light on some of our favorite indie games. We talked about a lot of them in our meeting already. I think even if we change the way we do awards, we discussed that we're going to try to find some way to surface like online, give you like a kind of like, here's our indie darlings, some other things like that we're going to do supplemental content online to help highlight games that we loved this year. I think we loved as a group because that's definitely a thing that we want to help get you some more diversity, some indie in your mainstream there. Mike from Chicago.
Nice. Go Cubs.
Thank you. Cameron from Fresno, California. Hello, people that tell me about video games. That's us. My question stems from my experience with Breath of the Wild. I finally got a Switch over Black Friday with the sweet Mario Kart 8 bundle and bought Breath of the Wild. Anyways, as I'm playing Breath of the Wild, I keep on getting sidetracked from the main quests and just want to walk around and find the damn Koroks under Very Stupid Rock. I like it's under Very Stupid Rock. I realized that this was the first game in a long time that I've truly felt an organic sensation of wanting to explore the world and ignore any goals and just look at the environments. Most games, I just like to do everything else out of habit and get to the story whatever. But in this game, I'm torn because the story is so interesting, but so is the world. Back to the real question. We get a lot of that, by the way.
Where do babies come from?
How do most of you play these types of games? My main line and the main quests and stories. Mainline the main quest and stories. Do everything with the main quest and story first, or do a mix of both. I normally avoid any story progression like the plague.
It depends on what's kind of tied to the main quest. Like if you're getting abilities and powers that you're going to need to maybe see more of the world, stuff like dragon shouts, stuff like that, or, really powerful things. I'll try to stick to the story and get as much of that stuff as possible. But I do kind of like that. I do venture off. I get distracted super easily in games, and I'm a completionist. I think you are too, Andy, where it's just like once you get hooked on something, you want to see everything it has to offer.
Yeah, it really depends on the game a lot.
I really love Riddler trophies in the Arkham games. And for Arkham City, the second I was allowed to go try to seek them out, I did. But I learned pretty quickly that like a lot of those puzzle solutions are tied to puzzles. And since that experience with City, because it left like a bad taste in my mouth early on, I couldn't do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I stick to the story like exclusively for at least like the first 2 or 3 hours. Like I even if I see stuff that I'm interested in, I'm like, let me just get my feet under me, do a couple story missions, and then I will start like venturing out and exploring it.
Usually I want the last boss or the final mission to be like the last thing I have to do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then have credits, and it's like, well, I just did everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I will find I if I say to myself, I'm going to get back to that, and then I, quote unquote, beat the last boss or the credits roll, I'm like, sweet, I'm just going to take a little break, and I'm going to come back to this game, and I'm going to do all the things I don't come back. I don't come back. And it's unfortunate because there are like things that I should do. I wish I was better about getting those platinums, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
But sometimes when the credits roll, I walk away and it's over. But it definitely depends on the game. I think the secret here is if the world traps you, that's the best game already. Doesn't matter what order you do it in. When the world works, when the world sings to you, that's when games are at their best. Here we go. Brian from the Ohio region. He doesn't want to be tracked down.
Smart.
I love Overwatch.
Me too.
Not just because I feel it has great gameplay, but because the art style and cartoony characters are so fun and expressive. Why don't more games do this? I don't know how much cheaper it is. You have more animation and more detailed rigs with characters. But when you look at the bloated cost of shooting for photorealistic textures, mocap animation, and face scanning in games like Spider-Man, the cost would have to be significantly lower. I personally think a game like Mass Effect would benefit greatly from a more animated art style. You could still have the violent and grungy world that has always been, but with more expressive characters to build relationships on. I hate Shepard's lifeless eyes in ME2. Why don't more games opt for a more animated art style, and what photorealistic franchises could benefit from making this switch? Well, one, I would say you can't always make the assumption that it's cheaper to do one or the other.
Yeah, we don't know that.
That's just you don't know, because I'll tell you right now, Overwatch spent a lot of money. Blizzard spent a lot of money on those animations and that art and like a lot of iterations, and have a extremely talented team. It's not as easy to be like, make it animated. Poof. Like it's a thing, right? And just like photorealistic is super hard as well. But they both can be costly in their own ways. It all depends on your production budget.
I think you can become dated a lot quicker with photorealism. Like, I think that shows, that's like the peak of the graphics at the time, whereas an animated style like a Borderlands, I think that game's going to withstand the test of time a little better just because it doesn't have to look super great. It just needs to be the proper resolution because it is stylized that way. Whereas like someone like Shepard, he would look better now, on today's generation of machines. But if he was animated, or was simplified, that could just kind of carry forward and not be hit by time. Right?
I think Mass Effect is actually a good answer. I think specifically it would have been cool if Andromeda had like a more sort of stylized like look just to separate itself from the previous trilogy. Plus it would have saved them a lot of grief over complaining about it.
Look at the evolution of Nathan Drake, from 1 to 4. Like, you can definitely see, whoa, it's a lot better. But you look at the old one, you're like,
Yeah.
I used to think this looked good, but no, not anymore.
Another good one we talked about earlier would be Darksiders 3. I think if they had just leaned into that comic book look like really hard. I mean, because it is pretty cartoony generally, but if they, I almost wish they had taken like a couple more steps in that direction.
Sure.
I think it would have helped.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think I love games that really hit realism right, but I play them with the understanding that it's gonna, even the best are gonna age poorly just because of technology. Reiner's 100% right about that. And by the way, Blizzard has known this for ages and been very good about like, they know that if they go with a animation or any kind of style, that the game has longer legs. Right. I mean, like games like Dota, League of Legends, Diablo. I mean, there's a long list of animated games that that's where the franchises go and stay. Right. And they're easier to always look good. You know, like versus like you watch a TV show from when like the Looney Tunes cartoons came out. Those TV shows look real dated.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Looney Tune cartoons, like they hold up.
Yeah.
You know,
Look
like
all right.
they hold up. So I mean, I think that's just it's a selection. I would hate for games to just do one. That would be boring.
Yeah.
But you know, you're not wrong. Not wrong. Thank you. From the Ohio region,
The mysterious.
Brian.
Is that it?
Ohio
Is that it?
region.
That's that. No, just one more.
Okay.
Okay.
Last one. Gracias from RJ in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, where the beaches and the sunsets are better than AC Odyssey. That's a brag. I like it. Hi, Ben and GI Crew. Don't like that.
Oh,
What are
sorry.
your thoughts on cutting or on skipping cutscenes in games? And do you feel bad knowing a developer actor worked so many hours to be simply skipped? Well, for RDR2, once I got to Chapter 5, I read you needed another 20 plus hours to finish, so I skip every cutscene
Whoa.
so I could finish the game. Probably cut down 10 hours, and then to hear the GI spoiler cast to see if I missed anything.
That blows my mind that you would get that far into the game and then decide to start skipping.
I guess
That's
at that
so
point, why are you
weird.
playing that?
Yeah, well,
Like being a cowboy, I guess.
I mean, I once again, people should play the games the way they want to play the games. Right?
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
talked
I mean,
earlier that there are people that don't like
Yeah.
story. I hear you.
But you're missing the whole.
It's your
context
money, though.
for-
You pay
Yeah.
for it. You play it the way you want. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, I think people could argue you missed the best parts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
I don't think it's wrong. Like it just blows my mind.
It blows my mind. Too.
Yeah.
It blows
I
my
could-
mind too.
I mean, especially with that game, I could just see him like playing that and then just being like, "What happened?"
Who's this person? Yeah.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
I mean, it's fine, but it is. I can't do it. By the way, and I watch. That's the worst part. I can't. Like, I'll be like, this cutscene is horrible, and then you'll see like, bloom bloom, bloom bloom. In the corner, you're like, I could skip this.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but what if I miss something important? I can't do it. I can't do it. What if they explain to me how that thing works? I can't go back. It's just like I can't take it. I can't do that.
I mean, nothing. Sorry. Go ahead.
When I start skipping them, it's like, okay, I'm probably done playing this game. Like I've lost interest in the narrative, and if that happens, you know, that's on the writing team or the animation teams, whatever my disconnect is. That's usually a bad sign for the game itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also too like, and to be fair to myself and to me answering this question too, I can also watch a cutscene and not remember a single moment or thought in it. Like
Yeah.
I can, if they're bad, I will watch them glazed over the entire time. And literally, there are games I play where people are like, "Oh man, don't you know this lore?" And I'll be like, "No." You know, because there's a difference between watching it and it being good, right? And there are, to be fair, love video games, but there's a lot of bad cutscenes in video games. Now that said, I don't remember seeing any in Red Dead that I saw. Like it seemed pretty well produced, but you know, teach their own.
Yeah.
Well, his
Teach their
was
own.
for the sake of time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
he's
you
just
just
like,
wanted
I
to
gotta
get to the
get through
credits.
this, but it's.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's an odd thing.
It's weird.
I've done it once where I just like actively I was like, you know what? I'm gonna skip cutscenes, and it's a weird one, but it's a Prototype 2. Cause like I really wanted to run around the city and like fly around and like be destructive, but I didn't play the first game, so I didn't know what was happening. Nothing
It
was
wouldn't have mattered if you played the first game.
well, yeah, right. And then like the first cutscene was like just I could not be less interested, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do an experiment here. I'm gonna skip every cutscene, And I did, and I beat the game, and I have no idea like why I was fighting the end boss. And
Any regrets?
no, but yeah, no.
No.
I don't think I'd do it again though. Like I nothing was like made me feel worse when I was younger in that sort of pre-YouTube age of playing a game and accidentally pressing a button and skipping a cutscene.
Oh, I've done that. And it makes you
Oh,
so.
it's the worst.
You know what's the
Hated it,
worst? Is when like someone's like, "Hey, hey," and you're like, "Cutscene." They're like, "Hey, hey," and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna hit start and pause,
God.
and I'm gonna engage this person that apparently has to bother me while I'm playing a game," and then it skips the cutscene. Oh, that makes me so
Yeah,
mad.
so mad.
So mad.
I mean, Reiner, I'm sure you can speak to it. I mean, like you and me, kids, like we
Oh,
gotta be
yeah.
able to pause a cutscene. Like it is. If you press a button, it just skips it. Like, that's the worst.
It
I
is. You
can't
got to
stand
reboot.
it. Yeah.
Poyu Pop on Switch. I skipped those story sequences. I think there was a penguin that had some beef with like a cactus creature, but I was just like, there's too much story in this. I do not care. I just want to play Poyu Pop.
It sounds like you missed the most important narrative.
I
of our
might
time.
have. It might have been like Red Dead. Yeah.
Didn't you guys play like Final Fantasy VII imported?
I
and
did.
just-
Yeah.
We
and
made
just
up our own
made up your
story.
own
I
story.
made it my own
Did
story.
you skip those cutscenes?
No, no. I did my own and it's like I just made up the story and I would like talk like MS 3000 style like during those
Just doing
things to
everyone's
myself,
dialogue?
which like
Like an insane person.
exactly. People walk by and be like, "What's up with that guy?" And I was just trying to keep my interest level up,
Yeah.
And I think I named all the spells. You know what I mean? Though I think some of them were just Lightning 1, Lightning 2, Lightning 3.
We started to learn
But
kanji that way.
I
Like,
did.
Hey, that's
I had-
fire.
I
Oh,
did.
really? Oh, that's funny. But even then, you guys couldn't bring yourself to skip. Could
But
you?
I point this out, and when I played Final Fantasy VII in English, I was disappointed.
Nothing.
My
could live
story
up
was
to your own
better.
Story.
My story was. I was going to say that it just was better.
Well,
It
you
just was
should
better.
write that story.
It can't be redone.
When you
I'll tell
retire,
that
you should-
moment,
you
that
should
moment of
play
time, it
it
was
in
the
Japanese
greatest
again.
story in video game history.
I was in the office during this, and it was like 100 hours of him playing this, and it was like a character from H.P. Lovecraft going mad. Is what I was like witnessing was his mind unraveling.
Well, there was parts too where you the level would have started in like English and been like, make sure you grab the key on the drawer
Yeah.
before you head out. And I would just be like, well, I'm heading out. And then be like cruising around the world, be like, I can't open this door.
I can't get out of this town.
And,
Why won't they let me out of the town?
And,
jeez.
and just like walk up to everything and slowly work your way through to
There were no walkthroughs
remove
online.
and then remove everything
so
and then go
crazy.
back to the beginning and be like, or it's right here at the start. Oops, my bad.
The best way to experience Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
VII.
that's the old days.
That's awesome.
That's the old days. Do we have a favorite question? Do you have a favorite question?
I can't even remember the last one
Well,
that was asked.
I liked
Well-
2D, 3D Mario. I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I also liked
That one's easy because it was the first one, so I can find it.
Yeah, I gotta go in the middle to make your life complicated, Andy.
I missed one here. I missed one.
Are you gonna read
I don't know.
it?
Yeah,
Or do you
I'll
wanna
read it real
let-
quick. I'll read it.
Okay.
Jordan from Eagan, Minnesota. One of my favorite traditions is the top 10 dorks list in
Yes.
the top 50 issue. Which horribly goofy characters do you hope make the cut this year? Are there any characters that annoyed you so much this year that you would fight to get them on the list? I'd be surprised if someone like Trainer the Monster Hunter or Trainer from Monster Hunter World isn't on at least at number 10.
Starlink, Battle for Atlas. There's a character named McCrae. He has a crazy
That sounds
first
like a
name,
cool
too.
name.
But he's like a professional streamer. But
It's-
he's a stowaway astronaut kid. Oh, he's the worst.
We were talking
Every
about
time he
him.
talks, I'm just like, shut up.
He's weird because like he seems like he's from the 90s.
Yeah.
But he's like a modern day streamer, like always filming
So
himself.
Reiner hates him because it's a mirror of himself. Is that right? Is that what I'm just making sure I'm understanding this right?
You do film yourself a lot talking.
I mean, it's like, right? Right? Or am I wrong?
I don't think I've ever seen Reiner hold a phone out in front of his face and talk to it.
Well, Pokemon Go.
You think I'm playing Pokemon Go. I've never touched that game.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're just... Oh.
He's just always streaming himself.
I had
What's
no
up?
idea.
What's up, Reiner Nears?
Reiner Nears? Is that like reindeers?
I don't know.
Reindeers?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's your fan base.
I don't like
dude.
the
I
end
don't
of
know.
this show.
Maybe we can go back and cut it off. We probably should have been cut off a long time ago.
No, people like long episodes.
I apologize again because
Leo's asleep in there.
Leo, wake up.
Yeah, I hope he's enjoying his nap. Okay, so unconventional thumbstick usage that could come out
okay.
wrong. too many stat tracking RPG stuff in games. Worse identity than Dead Island. Worst present from the holidays. Worst console you've owned. Best game of 2018 while listening to podcasts. Who you'll be maining in Mario Brothers.
Smash Brothers.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, just trying to help you out in the comments, man.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Do we still have hope for Bethesda games in the future? The Vault question. Smaller games I may have missed. Main versus side quest in open world games. Realistic art style versus animated art style. Is skipping cutscenes okay?
I like Dead Island.
Me too.
And Bethesda, I thought was a good chat too.
I like Dead Island because that was well researched, brought something different to the show that we normally wouldn't have talked about. Oh, that's true. We got to fact check you.
But it was a good they pointed out something really interesting about that franchise. So I like
it's
the
a different
Dead Island
talk.
question.
I like
You like that one?
Yeah.
Okay, you like that one. Okay.
Yes.
Dead Island. Who was it?
That was Lucas Ledoux from Iota, Louisiana.
There we go.
Elder Gods Country. So, I don't want to have to figure out where to put it on the map.
No,
I do
no.
know where Louisiana is.
We do that off camera.
But they do that. Yeah, I don't have to like throw a dart and hit it.
If you
Okay?
could, though, that would be very impressive.
That would be a skill I do not have. Stay tuned, everyone. Ben Reeves is going to talk to Francesco Antolini about tornadoes, jetpacks, destruction in general with Just Cause 4. That's up next. This is the end of my ride. This is it. We did awards.
You did it, man.
We did Red Dead Redemption Online. We did Fallout 76. We did Darksiders 3.
I mentioned Beat Saber, like I promised
You mentioned
I would.
Beat Saber. You got that in there.
You kept it under 5 hours. It was great.
The problem is, okay, I'll just let you know, now when I complain to Ben about him making episodes too long, I don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
It's kind of true, so it's a
Just
problem.
blame it on Reeves. Let's pretend
But-
that interview is really long.
Please, I mean, I want to read your comments about what you think about the top 50, about awards, about where we should go, about where you think games are going. I find that fascinating, interesting. I want to know your views. I hope you enjoyed the show. You'll have Ben back next week, fresh from a trip that he can't talk about, but he will talk about soon enough.
Yeah.
And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you later. Cheers.
All right, welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm here to introduce the podcast interview section of this podcast, and I'm Ben Reeves, your illustrious host. We have the game director for Just Cause 4. His name is Francesco Antolini, and as I said, he's the game director of Just Cause 4. Francesco. All of these things are important. Unfortunately, the audio quality of the interview wasn't quite up to snuff, up to our high bar of standard, but we did the best we could, and we're excited about this interview. We hope you're really excited to listen to it, so I'll let Ben Reeves take it away. All right, well, welcome, Francesco. Thanks for taking some time to chat with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, man.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine, sir. Just Cause 4, we're excited to talk about it. I hope you're excited making it, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And think about it too now, because, we've kept it as a sort of secret for 3 years and such, so.
Yeah, well, I think some people suspected you might be working on it.
The best kept secret in the industry, right?
Yeah, for sure. I have to ask, too, just coming right out of the gate, everybody's playing Red Dead right now. It's like a huge, massive open world game. Like, how does it feel like releasing another open world game like after Red Dead has rocked the industry? Do you feel like you're not competing with them because you're such a different thing?
Oh, it feels actually good because it's not that Red Dead was out on the shelves yesterday. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's now about 1 month that it's out. So I guess people had the time to actually play it, or at least, those who are very, very actual fan of the franchise. So, no, I don't feel bad about it. And especially, now that we know about how the game plays, I haven't played it myself, unfortunately, because, the last stretch when you finish a game, it's crazy. I'm grateful I can have an interview now and I'm not getting crazy after bugs and prioritization and stuff, because it's all there, even if you are just 1 week from release. But anyway, I've read around, especially for journalists who had the opportunity to play Just Cause, that Just Cause fits like the polar opposite in terms of pacing and type of experience. So it can actually be a nice mix, and that's it. So no, I'm not scared by Red Dead. If I'm scared about anything, is how much people who play with the game are liking it, and so we'll be able to be up to expectation.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Sounds like you guys are lighting the city on fire with how much game development is going on over there.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, your sirens in the background, but in terms of like the game and like you guys have always kind of focused on like just crazy antics, it seems like, and like this one in particular, you're just like mixing stuff together and combining different things to create, just see what people can do in the world, which is cool. Is that like your big push going in, was like, how do we take these tools and mix them up and like let players have fun? It seems like that's kind of the core of the franchise, right?
Yeah, we're actually, kind of gently following the natural evolution for the franchise itself. If you think about it, Just Cause 1 was super heavy on verticality and introduced the element of destruction and Maya, but up to a certain extent, because what you could do was just destroy vehicles. But people loved them. So we doubled down in Just Cause 3 with the concept of chaos objects and big explosions to be done everywhere. With Just Cause 3, we ramped up destruction, switching to proper physical objects, physicalized extraction for things that explode too, with the object composed by multiple parts that flow away and so on. We did try a little experiment, which was having this retract feature on the grappling hook. For us, it was a little thing, but the meaning of that little thing, the message to player was, look, you can actually mess up with the physics in the world in an active way. You can build a Goldberg machine, you can do stuff. Will player use that or not? We didn't know, but it ended up that they went nuts after that. And they also went nuts after the jet mode on the planted explosive, that little propeller thing, right? Using that for all sort of sandbox activities, which was not something that we had forecast before. And then people kept on producing video using Just Cause 3, right? So that was a moment where we said, okay, it looks like really the sandbox, the creative destruction, more so than verticality or the grappling hook as a traversal tool, right? More so than just explosions for the sake of exploding things. It's the heart of our game. It was make us different, and that's where we need to push. And that's why we push so much on Just Cause 4. And everything, right? It's the grappling hook with all this attachment and mosaic you can mix and match, but it's also the extreme weather. It's physicalized for a reason. It free roams to the world for a reason. And that reason is to step up the ante of the. And getting back to what you were asking before, the reason why I'm not afraid of Red Dead, but I'm not afraid of anything under that regard right now, is that because the way we do physics sandbox, nobody else does it. So it's, if you want that case, you need Just Cause. That's it.
Yeah, that just sandbox gameplay has been your guys' bread and butter for a long time. We had the opportunity to go visit the New York studio for the Just Cause 3. We did a cover on Just Cause 3. And they were talking a lot about like they wanted to like push the story elements a little bit more and kind of take the story a little bit more seriously. Do you guys still feel like that's important for you guys, or have you guys gone the other way?
I think yet once again that's another part of the game that have been evolving with the franchise. Man, we started Just Cause 1. Literally, it was featuring dick jokes, right? That's something I would like to propose today. Whereas in 3, we finally have a character. You can see through him a little bit. So with 4th, we continue the evolution. So Rico, it's even more rounded as a person. I think it's pretty relatable this time around because we've taken away the ridiculous from his person, making him more witty, more reasonable, more in line with a modern action hero. Now,
and at the same time, he's fighting volcanoes, though.
Exactly. So I mean that's the point. Right? So if as a player you don't care about that side and you just want to go around mindlessly exploding stuff, go ahead. You're fine. But on the other hand, we hope that by giving a little bit more of depth, a little bit more layer into Rico and to the story itself, because for once, big spoiler, we are going beyond the classic cliche of the Ravello-like dictator. So, if you have a little bit of interest in the story of it, Rico's lore, and so on, you find something.
Sure.
I think that's important.
Yeah, I know fans have like poured over your trailers dozens of times, and have cropped out moments where it looks like Rico's maybe winking at the camera a little bit, or kind of turning and doing some fourth wall breaking. Is there any truth to what people are reading into that, or are they reading into too much?
I'm not sure what you're referring about. I haven't seen it. Personally, I'm not a super big fan of breaking the fourth wall. Although we have a little thing actually in the game. So another thing, actually, what really makes a difference to me in terms of creative direction when it comes to the narrative of the game, more so than the content or of the narrative itself, is that we manage this time around to justify everything that you do in a narrative way, right? So there is a set of activities that you're doing in behalf of a character. Her name is Garland. And Garland, she's a filmmaker from Brooklyn who is in Solis to film things there, is making a movie full of stunts and stuff like that. She discovered that Ricos is there, and oh heck, I need to feature him in my movie. And so you will find yourself under the lens of Garland, a hypothetical camera, quite a lot along the adventure. And that's as far as we go, as trying to create.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just curious too on your take for, it seems like photo modes and just the ability to share clips from games has become more and more important over the years, even just since 3 released. So I'm just curious for you guys, considering your game is just ripe for wanting to share little moments, how important does stuff like photo mode or video sharing, how important is that to you guys? Did you think about that a lot while developing the game?
Yeah, it's super important, absolutely, especially when it comes to video sharing. So again, I was telling you before that one of the sources of inspiration for what we've designed were the humongous quantity of video that people have produced with Just Cause 3. So we don't want to take the pleasure away on the opposite. So in the gameplay itself and the way the game is structured, it is going to be much easier than it was in Just Cause 3 to actually set up stunts and pull off stunts. When it comes to a thing called video mode or photo mode, if I had a bigger team and more resources, I would have very, very happily put it into the game. At the end, we have to take choices, and not having a video mode or a photo mode in game to me is justified by the fact it's forgivable if you want, on the basis of the fact that modern consoles have a button to actually start taking a screenshot or dump on disk the last 15 minutes of gameplay. You have this on console and you have this with a different PC graphics card. So there shouldn't be nothing impeding players to actually record screenshots or videos.
Yeah. I'm curious too, just speaking of like things and like how you guys approach development and things that go in the game and don't go in the game. Like in the past, your community has really embraced the mod scene and creating their own multiplayer gameplay, and that became kind of a big thing online. And just how does that affect you guys as developers? Do you look at that and be like, well, maybe we should do multiplayer someday, or we just want to let these guys have fun with what they're doing?
That's another thing that I would love to do. I'm grateful to those guys. By the way, some of them are now actual part of the company. And the point is, again, that as long as I am going to direct a Just Cause, I prefer to do less stuff, but done well, rather than doing everything just for the sake of doing it, or to say, oh, we go multiplayer, right? A multiplayer, it's much more than just allowing, X number of players to share a world. You need to have gameplay for them. You need to have progression. You need to have a way to take care of this community as it evolves and take care of the world itself, right?
Yeah.
When I is thinking about like GTA 5, GTA Online did a wonderful job. So that would be my minimum benchmark, if you want, when it comes to multiplayer. And again, unfortunately, we are not a team of that size. We are about 100 to make a game that is huge.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that we have continuously to take choices, and some choice comes really a priori, like the multiplayer one. It's very, very big. It's a very big thing, and as a team, 3 years ago at least, when we started doing this game, we were not ready to tackle it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot of work just creating the sandbox you guys have, and it's from what I played so far, it's a fun sandbox, which is great. Congrats. When you guys start looking at that, and you start looking at like, here's the different tools we want to give to players, did you go back to previous Just Cause games and see like, oh, this is what players are messing around with most, how do we make that more fun, how do we add more to those elements?
We actually did this in a scientific way. We had the luxury of having some time between Just Cause 3 and Just Cause 4. That was the time when we were developing the DLC for Just Cause 3, basically. And that was also a time where, journalist reviews, players' commentaries, Reddit comments, and things like that were pouring into the internet regarding Just Cause 3. And we took as many as possible of those. We isolated keywords, and we marked whether these keywords were mentioned within a favorable or an unfavorable context. Like, I love the wingsuit keyword, wingsuit, oh, good.
Uh-huh.
The game, it's always the same shit, keyword, variety, negative. And at the end, we had this histogram, which was showing quite clearly which were the things the players and journalists that loved the most and which they loved the least. And we are going to give more of what they loved a lot, and we did some pretty strong, we took some pretty strong action to amend the things that were not working. One of those things, by the way, it's very evident, you didn't need to have this kind of analysis, was that Just Cause 3 was not the best performing of the games out there. And we didn't want to repeat that. We didn't want to have those issues again with Just Cause 4. So the big technological leap, the big effort, technologically speaking, has been gone into completely redesigning the engine. We have a new engine. We've done Just Cause 4 with Apex, so that it can actually support the amount of mayhem that this game will throw at your console or at your PC. And so we did that first, and then possibly, as a second step, we may start thinking about multiplayer.
Sure. Yeah. Just going back to those tools that you guys add to the game, I know in the Gold Edition there's a wingsuit jetpack, which looks like a lot of fun. Is that something that players will be able to get even if they don't have the Gold Edition? Is that just DLC? Like, how are you guys rolling that out?
So this is part of a publisher strategy. I'm a little bit outside of that. So I know that currently you can have the Sky Striker, that's how we call it.
Uh-huh.
You can have the Sky Striker if you buy the Digital Deluxe Edition.
Right.
Will things change in the future? I frankly do not know.
Okay.
What I know is that you can play the whole game from start to end and a lot of fun, regardless of whether you got the Sky Striker or not.
So you're saying people will have fun even without the jetpack?
No, they would have fun in both ways.
Sure.
So
I'm sure. I want the jetpack, though.
So you got to buy the Digital Deluxe Edition, man.
All right. We'll go with that. Curious, too, just with game development and how you feel like just has your approach changed to the series at all since 3 or 2?
As my approach to the series changed, again, it has evolved. When I was working on Just Cause 3, some of the most important things for me were the traversal mechanics, if you want, and a big issue that we had to solve at the beginning of that game was how to foster player playing vertically. newcomers especially, right? You take this game, how do we avoid for people to actually stay feet on ground and try to find cover and then be frustrated because we don't have a cover button, because it's just not fun to play just goes like that. So my mind was pretty much focused on that type of problems. And also, there is a change in my role from designer to director. Now I have a much wider view on the whole game itself. And that helps a lot to prioritize resources and where you spend your money on and where you don't. But I would say that having gone past the basic hurdles are the basic obstacles with Just Cause 3. With Just Cause 4, there was much more freedom to explore what we did really want to explore, which is, again, the sandbox nature of the game and the overall macro systems. You will find a huge difference, hopefully a huge leap forward between Just Cause 3 and Just Cause 4.
Sure. I know Just Cause definitely has a fan community around it. I don't feel like it's broken through the mainstream in a way that a lot of other open world games have. Do you feel like you guys are ever make or break? Is it ever like, all right, Just Cause, this is as far as we can take this series and we're going to go do something else? Or are you guys happy to continue tinkering away on Just Cause for as long as you can?
I can tell you this, that so with Just Cause 4, we actually took a lot of actions to try, I can't say make sure, but to try to actually get out from the niche, expand the niche to the mainstream, if you want. So part of actually growing Rico as an actual modern action hero, it's part of that effort. But there are endless efforts also on the design side that go in that direction from the controls itself, right? So this is the first, sorry, it's so wrapped, but this is the first Just Cause that is going to feature proper iron sights as you are used to. And it's a little thing, but it's also, I take the gamepad and I feel straight at home if I am a mainstream gamer. Concurrently, we've been talking now a lot about creativity, but truth is that one of the reasons why we are niche, I believe, is that creative players are not the majority of players out there. They are actually quite of a minority. So things that Just Cause 4 does, it never forces you to be creative. There is a way to play this game that hinges mainly, if not solely, on the visceral pleasure of big explosions and raw firepower, right? And you want to play the game in that way, that's completely fine. And yet again, you're going to find something different that other games cannot offer, because in other games, you tend to be stuck on the ground, and there are not so many opportunities to create emergent mayhem. Emergent mayhem, even if you are not creative, and you are not there playing, trying to set up a cascade reaction of destruction. But the thing can happen. And the way it happens in our game won't happen in any other.
Sure.
So,
well, speaking of those creative solutions, have you, what's the craziest creative solution you've seen a playtester come up with while making the game?
There was the first one. We say that we are successful with a Just Cause when we go to a playtest and we see somebody pulling something off that we had not thought about beforehand. The first time that it happened was with a guy who used the booster attachment basically to turn its car into an airplane. So he discovered that if he had boosters in a certain position behind the car, and then he went to a ramp and then turned on the booster, the car could just fly. And since we feature after-touch, it could just, navigate it into the sky. That was very, very, very cool. Another one, this one I love, this comes from one of our PR, just messing around with the game. And she attached an airlifter, our balloons, to a goat, okay?
To a goat?
To a goat.
Okay.
And she was equipping a wing gun. So then what she did, the airlifter, these balloons are big for a purpose so that you can reel into them. So it was the balloon with the goat. She reeled in on the lower part of the balloon, and then she started to blow wind with the wind gun on the goat. The whole thing started to move. So she basically built a new vehicle, goat-based.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Oh, that's pretty. So players who don't get their jetpack can just find a creative way to build their own, is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Francesco, thanks for joining us today. When can players get their hands on this game?
On the 4th of December.
4th of December. It's coming up. That's right around the corner. You got to be excited about that, right?
Yes, super excited.
You can put it away and have Christmas with the family.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, man.
Well, yeah, thanks again. And thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. And stay tuned next week. We'll have another one waiting for you. Bye.